Faites appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le Sénateur Gorst,
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Farnham,
Présent.
Madame le Sénateur Ferguson,
Présente.
Monsieur le Sénateur Lefondre,
Présent.
Madame le Sénateur Valois,
Présente.
Madame le Sénateur Moore,
Présente.
Monsieur le Sénateur Pallet,
Présent. Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Mézet,
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélier,
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent,
Présente.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Sauveur,
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade,
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Grouville,
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité,
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre,
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Sainte-Marie,
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen,
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Martin,
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean,
Présent.
Madame le Député Martin,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Southern,
Présent.
Madame le Député de Grouville,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Lewis,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Tadier,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Higgins, Monsieur le Député Masson,
Présent.
Madame le Député Pinel,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Martin,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Ouen,
I was just looking at your at the minutes from the.
Could somebody please stop talking? We can hear someone who's not muted their microphone and they're talking. Could they stop, please? Carry on, please, Griffith.
Madame le Député Dublé,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Labbé,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Wickenden,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Sainte-Marie,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Truscott,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Young,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Ash,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Morel, Monsieur le Député Guida,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Pierre, Monsieur le Député de la Trinité,
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Jean,
Présent.
Madame le Député Le Hégara,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Ayer,
Présent.
Madame le Député Pershaw, Monsieur le Député Ward,
Présent.
Madame le Député Alves,
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Pamplin,
Présent.
Madame le Député Gardner,
Présente.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, donner l'école et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de la bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il te plût de mettre à la soie. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père,
Notre Père,
qui est aux
Yes.
cieux, ton nom soit
sois
sanctifié,
sanctifié,
ton règne vienne,
ton règne vienne,
ta volonté
ta
soit
volonté
faite sur la
soit
terre
faite en
comme
la
au
terre
ciel.
comme au ciel.
Donne-nous aujourd'hui
Donne-nous
notre pain
notre
quotidien,
pain.
et nous pardonne nos
Nous
offenses,
Nos offenses,
comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous
ceux
ont
qui nous
offensés.
offensés.
Et ne nous invite pas en tentation,
Tentation,
mais
mais
délivre-nous du
délivre-nous
mal.
du mal.
Car à toi la
Toi,
reine,
la reine,
la puissance et la gloire,
la gloire,
au siècle
au
des
siècle des
siècles.
siècles.
Amen.
Monsieur le Député Higgins,
Présent.
Monsieur le député Morel,
Présent.
Madame le député Pershaw,
Excusez,
Assemblée autonome, Monsieur le Président.
les États sont constitués. Before moving down the order paper, I would very much like, for those of you who do not already know, draw members' attention to the fact in the gallery watching today's proceedings that we have Mr. Stephen Twigg, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, and on behalf of members, I'd like to welcome him to the meeting. There is nothing on the order paper under B, C, but under D, notification of lodged propositions. The Immigration Act's consolidation and extension to Jersey by ordering Council P44 comments lodged by the Children, Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel. Draft Proceeds of Crime Amendment of Law Number 2, Jersey Regulations, P45 comments lodged by the Economic and International Affairs Scrutiny Panel. Les Kennevet Park Flats Loan Scheme P19 rescindment amendment lodged by Deputy Tade. Draft Amendment number 52 of the Standing Orders of the States of Jersey comments lodged by the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel P62. Rent Control and Register of Rents Re-establishment lodged by Deputy Morel P65. Draft Amendment number 53 of the Standing Orders of the States lodged on the 10th of June by the Privileges and Procedures Committee P66. Springfield Protection of Amenity Space and Facilities lodged by the Connétable of St Helier P67. Draft Criminal Procedure Jersey Law 2018 Appointed Day number 4 Act lodged by the Minister for Home Affairs P68. Affordable Homes in the South Hill Development lodged by Senator Mezek P69. Parental Bereavement Leave lodged by Deputy Aye P70. The Kennevet Park Flats Loan Scheme Revised Terms lodged by the Minister for Housing and Communities P71. Under E, the following propositions have been withdrawn. Draft Amendment number 52 of the Standing Orders of the States, which have been lodged by the Privileges and Procedures Committee, and Youth Service Provision, which have been lodged by Senator Valois. We now come on to Part F, and that is the election of ministers. The first is the selection of a Minister for Children and Education. Members will have received notice of the Chief Minister's nomination. Chief Minister, would you wish to make your nomination?
Yes, sir. And as I did last time, can I spend 25 seconds just elaborating that fractionally?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Just in nominating Deputy Wickenden, I'd just like to say I have been struck by his passion for the portfolio. He does bring a good level of political experience from across a number of areas, and importantly, he is already familiar and works well with the rest of the council ministers as part of the team. He's analytical and his work ethic is significant, which given the many and late hours we all do at present, that is a factor. Most critically, given there are a few remaining months of the electoral cycle, he will ensure a balance of stability and commitment to be maintained in what has been a difficult few months for the teams in the department, sir. And in concluding there, sir, I wish to nominate Deputy Wickenden and Minister for Children and Education. Thank you, sir.
Is that nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there other nominations?
Yes, sir. I'd like to nominate Deputy Rob Ward as Minister for Education.
Is that nomination seconded?
And
are there any other nominations?
sorry, sir. Would I be allowed to say something about Deputy Ward as the Chief Minister has?
Yes, you fooled me by your pause, Connétable. Please do.
Sorry.
Understood.
So I'd just like to say I'm delighted to nominate Deputy Ward for this post. He's an outstanding candidate, having spent all his working life in education before being elected to this Assembly. I've spoken frequently with him over the last 3 years and have come to know his passion for education and the well-being of our youth. He's extremely capable and his dedication to education is unquestionable. If you know anything about Deputy Ward, first and foremost, you would know that he is an advocate of good education and wants the best for the young of our island. Deputy Ward has had a long and successful career as a teacher of chemistry and was head of department. He looks at problems analytically, he researches and he finds solutions. Yes, Deputy Ward is a member of Reform, but that will not be a hindrance to him becoming a very effective minister, a minister for education who can put aside tribal politics for the good of our children and young people. I say this for the sake of our island and especially for the sake of those in education, teachers, students, support staff and parents. We simply cannot allow this appointment to be seen as an interim or holding position until the election next year. We all deserve to have someone with the talent, intellect, vision and drive to guide this department. We need a person who knows that a good all-round education is paramount. We need to elect the best candidate for this role. We need to elect Deputy Rob Ward as the new Education Minister. I urge you all, whatever your political leanings, to vote for the best candidate for this role. Please support Deputy Rob Ward. Thank you.
Very much, Connie Tarbell. That's already been seconded. Are there any other nominations?
Yes, sir. Deputy Morrell here, sir.
Yes, Deputy.
I'd like to nominate Deputy Louise Doublé for the role, please, sir. In my 3 years, and I know it stretches before then, I have known no other States member to show such an unrelenting and passion and commitment to the issue of children education. No other deputy, no other senator, no other connoisseur has been so single-minded in their determination to ensure that children and education are at the top of the agenda, sir. And there's no question that with Deputy Doublé's commitment to the job, that she is a team player who would be very keen and very clear about her desire to work with anyone and everyone, as long as it is in the furtherance and the improvement of facilities and the education of children and young people. So, sir, I also can think of no one who would be better placed to do this job, because no one has shown as much commitment to this job as Deputy Doublé. So I'd like to propose her. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Is that proposal seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? Very well. In accordance with Standing Order 1176, I will invite the candidates to speak and answer questions in the order in which they were nominated, starting therefore with Deputy Wickenden. Candidates will be able to speak for up to 10 minutes, and then members will have up to 20 minutes to ask them questions. Greffier will ring a bell to signal when the time is up for the 10-minute speech. Similarly, the greffier will ring a bell when we reach the 20-minute limit. When all candidates have made speeches and answered questions, we will take a recorded vote, and the candidate who receives more than half of the votes cast will be appointed to the post. When one candidate is speaking and answering questions, all other candidates will withdraw from the meeting. Staff from the States Cref will escort candidates to a quiet room and stay with them until it is their turn. Accordingly, in accordance with that process, I would ask Deputy Ward and Deputy Doublé now to leave the chamber. We just pause for a short period to enable the candidates who have left the chamber to reach their semi-final destination. Deputy Wickenden, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I would like to thank the Chief Minister for proposing me for the position of Minister for Children and Education. I took on the role as Assistant Minister for Children and Education 113 days ago on the 9th of March this year, and I've been managing the portfolio now for 96 days. Firstly, I would like to reassure members that if I were to be appointed today, this will trigger my resignation from various other roles that I currently hold. I want this to be my primary focus. I care about this role, which is so vital for the future of the island. With just under a year until the next election, what the Sites Department needs is to see stability in its leadership to better support and progress the important strategic change programme that it is undertaking. I've already spent the last 100 days getting up to speed with all the various work streams sites are undertaking, which means I will be able to seamlessly continue leading the department. I would suggest that to bring new leadership at this stage will cause unnecessary disruption and slow down the progress we are making, which would be harmful to the education and support services sites are providing to the island's children at this most difficult of times. The Sites Department is going through a complex and necessary programme of change. Let me detail some of the important work in education we are undertaking, such as the Inclusion Review, which is looking to ensure that all children have equal opportunities to educational outcomes, which is surely one of our paramount goals in this Assembly. There is the retraining strategy, which looks to ensure that lifelong learning opportunities are in place, which is an area that's been neglected for years. And we all know that post-COVID, retraining opportunities will be essential to support our economy. We have the School Funding Review that will ensure that resourcing will be improved across education and will also help to address the inequalities in the system. We have the higher education funding with the ambition of making sure that all students who wish to attend to university can afford to, no matter their family's income. And of course, we have the Education Reform Programme, which is addressing the funding deficit for pupil premium, special educational needs, English as an additional language, and low prior attainment, to name just a few. Some of the work we are undertaking in the children's portfolio is to soon lodge the due regard law, which will make it so that after the next election and once the next Assembly is in place, it will be a legal requirement to undertake a child impact rights assessment before any changes or new laws get lodged. This is putting awareness of the impact of children at the very heart of what we do at this Assembly. We'll be lodging the Children and Young People Jersey Law, which will replace the Children's Jersey Law 2002. This law will set out the legal framework and series of new arrangements to promote the well-being and safeguarding the welfare of all children in Jersey. We have set up the Intensive Fostering Service that will provide family-based placements in Jersey as a direct alternative to placing children and young people in residential homes or in special facilities off island. Its aim is to keep Jersey's children in the island if this is in their best interest. We are setting up the therapeutic care home to stop putting children in secure facilities. This new facility is about restorative care, not punitive. This has been a priority I've championed since taking on this role. We are also setting up an independent advocacy and support for birth family service, which will offer a free and confidential telephone and digital advice service, providing accountable, legal and practical advice to families independent of children's social care services. So, sir, you can see there's a considerable amount of work going on, and I'm only giving members a broad outline. Sir, I've also made it a priority over the last 100 days to visit as many schools as I could. These visits are easily the best part of having this position. It was amazing to speak directly to teachers and pupils and see how they learn and hear firsthand what their needs are. For example, when I spoke to the students at Lasont Primary School and asked what I could do for them to make their schools better, they said they wanted a softer floor on their playground. So I'm arranging a 3G pitch to be installed. I'm also arranging for Rouge-Beaulieu School to have a parking space in a fire service car park, saving them thousands of pounds in private parking that can then be used for better educational outcomes for the children at that school. Sir, I hope this demonstrates that I'm directly speaking to schools and pupils to hear their needs and working with the sites and other departments to find the solutions to the problems they face. As part of my duties as an Assistant Minister, I have had the pleasure of chairing the Children's Strategic Partnership Board. In this important multi-agency meeting, there are two clear areas of concern: children's dentistry and children in domestic abuse households. To find a solution to the children's dentistry problem that seems to have always been in the too difficult to solve tray, I set up an evening meeting of key staff from Health, Social Security and SIPES, along with the Social Security and Health Ministers. The key aim of the meeting was to come up with a plan to get a baseline of the health of the island's children's team, to create an educational programme for children around prevention, and to get the waiting list at the hospital to manageable levels. The key message I gave in this meeting was be bold. I'm happy to inform the Assembly that in that meeting we did come up with a plan which will achieve all of the objectives set. We will arrange for a programme of screening in schools to get a baseline of children from reception to 7 post-COVID. We will also commit extra funding to set up an educational programme for all children aged 0 to 12 years. We will expand the dental provision in the hospital to help reduce the waiting list. And we will contract with primary care dentists with funding to provide fluoride varnish and simple treatments to allow the hospital to concentrate on critical treatment. I'm also working with the Children's Commissioner and the Director of Safeguarding Care on a scheme to help victims and children get out of domestic abuse households so they can live independently. So if today the Assembly votes for me, I've asked Deputy Poynton to continue as my Assistant Minister with delegated responsibilities to manage the CAMS portfolio, of which he is already doing a brilliant job. I've also asked the Constable of St Peter to be my Assistant Minister. With the enormous amount of change that Sites Department is going through, I and the Chief Minister feel that the Constable's extensive experience in management and change management will be a real asset to the leadership and oversight of the department. I'm also considering setting up a political oversight group. As I've laid out, there's a large portfolio of change happening, and I feel that there are other members that have skills that can contribute. I've already invited Deputy Dublé and Deputy Pershard to consider joining such a group. Sir, there has been much said about me not ever being a teacher, or if I'm as suitable for the role as other candidates. I hope from my speech members will see that there is a lot more to this portfolio than teaching. The department is also responsible for social workers, foster carers, adoption, safeguarding, care homes, to name but a few. Being a minister is not about being a former social worker or teacher. It's about setting policy and direction. It's about listening to the staff, reading the papers and questioning before giving your clear direction to the officers. As members will know, I have extensive experience working as a backbench member on scrutiny and as an assistant minister in 2 very different governments. I've proven that I'm able to work collaboratively with other members and ministers, and I've held many roles over the last 7 years, giving me a breadth of experience to enable me to undertake this important role. So I would also like to thank Senator Valois, Deputy Massol, and Senator Mezek for their hard work and tenacity when they were ministers for Sites. None of the great work that is happening could be possible without their vision and their fight for the funding in the government plan. As I've said, I've been responsible for the Children and Education Minister portfolio for 100 days so far. And in that time, I would like to tell members how much I've fallen in love with the role and how passionately I feel about the portfolio. From meeting teachers, pupils, social workers and care workers, to name just a few, it's clear to me that all the staff of Sites are passionate and committed to making a better life for all the children in Jersey. I am passionate about delivering the very best educational programme we can in Jersey and making sure that all children and families get the best services and support they need and deserve. I hope members will see from my speech that I have given absolute commitment to the Sites Department and I've taken my role as their leader very seriously. I hope members will support me in continuing this very important work, leading this very important department. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Deputy. There is now a period of 20 minutes of questions to Deputy Wickington, Connétable St Helier.
Thank you, sir. The candidate will appreciate that this role is about caring for all of the island schools and not those in St Helier. but I wonder if he would also agree with me that St Heliers schools, in particular the primaries, have lost out in recent years in terms of investment and ensuring they have as good facilities as primary schools in the more leafy parishes. How is he going to address the lack of funding in town primary schools, in particular the problems that Rouge Bouillon School has been faced and which his predecessor tried hard but unsuccessfully to resolve?
Deputy.
Thank you, Conrad, for the question. You're absolutely right about the St Heliers schools and certainly the primary schools. We are doing a review of the school funding review, which is looking at how we better fund or how we completely fund schools in a way that gives the best outcomes for education. We're doing the school estate review right now. We need to know where the need for the future of St Helier is, for where they need to have their schools. Is it a 2-form entry or 3-form entry? That work is going on as a priority right now, so that we can find a place to put a school in St Helier to support the children that live there, for the best schools that we can provide them. I'm committed to carrying on both of those pieces of work and making sure that all children in St Helier and the island are funded correctly and they have the right facilities.
Supplementary, Conrad.
Thank you, sir.
Deputy Martin.
Yes, thank you, sir. The candidate said in his speech that he's been visiting schools. Can I ask if the deputy has been to see the team at Children's Services to hear what they think going forward? Thank you.
Thank the deputy for a question. Yes, I actually have. I've been to see the Children's Services, and I went and did a tour and met with as many staff as I could around that department. One question I asked them when I went there is, what can I do to make your job better? Is there anything that you need changing? And I've got a list of certain things. There's areas like in the fostering services, they want to make sure that when there's extra money given to foster carers that it's not taxed, and I'll be working to try and see if I can remove that problem and a burden from there. I've also set up a senior leadership team so I can speak directly to the senior leaders of that team, so they can speak to me directly and tell me what their issues are, what they're doing. I think it's important to make sure that my job as their minister is to make sure that I knock down barriers and make things better so they can provide the best service with the least trouble.
Supplementals, Deputy.
Yes, was there any comment made, or would the deputy like to comment on that there is over children education, there is one Director General, and does he and their team feel this works better than 2 ministers pull in at the same time in different ways sometimes?
There is so many synergies across the education and the children's portfolio. A lot of time they interlink with the same children. Having one minister and one Director General helps actually see a holistic view across those children to give the services that interlink and join up. So it's about, if there is a child in care, that they're also getting the right education that they need, that we're not putting children in care that shouldn't be there, but also identifying when there is an issue in schools, that we can then look at them at a holistic level to make sure that we're giving the right support and the right services. So,
Senator Meze.
Thank you, sir. Same question I'll try to ask all the candidates. Could this candidate explain what his definition of the term corporate parenting is, and explain how he would proceed in implementing the care inquiry recommendation on introducing corporate parenting legislation?
I thank the Senator for his question. Corporate parenting is about, in this context for me, it's about all of the services that have a responsibility over services and care for children. That's from politicians to the courts, to the parishes, to care services. What's happening at the moment is we are bringing in the new child law. It will be brought in this year, the new children's law, and in that it sets out a lot of areas like the UNCRC rights of corporate parenting, that statutory sets out which bodies are corporate parents, how they have to work together to make sure that they're delivering the best services for children as a corporate parent. So that's what I will be carrying on to do.
So,
Supplementary, please, sir.
Yes.
The candidate referenced the UNCRC in his answer then. If he was elected minister, would he be encouraging government departments, even before it becomes a legislative requirement, to be producing children's rights impacts assessment with all of the proposals that they bring forward?
Yes, I absolutely would agree to that. And actually, a lot of that work is already happening. Later this year, I'll be lodging the Due Regard Bill, which will also set out, as I said, set out that the children's rights impact assessments have to be delivered in any changes to law or any new laws. So all departments that are doing policy work or changing to laws will, by a legal requirement, be required to do a child impact rights assessment, and we'll be setting up a digital program that will allow it to happen seamlessly, and hopefully we will be leaders in the world in this area.
Deputy Hagerer?
Thank you, sir. What has the Deputy done personally during his time in the Assembly to improve the lives of children and young people?
So I guess in a lot of ways, there's a lot of digital work that's been going on to make sure that they can school from home during COVID. I have been going around and looking at areas in schools and in the department to try and break down barriers so that we can do more. The therapeutic foster care service is something that we are setting up now that I've been absolute championing. I disagree with putting children in what would be a locked cell. I would rather put them in a place of restorative care to help them. I think that's the best way to the best future for the children who have the most troubling needs.
Supplementary, Deputy?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Ash?
Thank you, sir. Recently, I had the privilege of attending a debate of primary school children from St Clement's School in the Assembly. It was fantastic, and they were very, very keen. Their debate was on should we have school dinners, school lunches, and they were very keen to see them implemented. What does the candidate think of that suggestion?
Thank the Deputy for the question. There is a piece of work going on right now which is looking at putting serveries in all our primary schools. In fact, when I went to the Parish Assembly for the Lalonde School, where they are looking to put a planning application in, I saw that they hadn't put a servery in, and I asked the head teacher to make sure that servery was put into the school if they were going to do a planning application. I've been talking to other schools about where they could put a servery. What are the barriers to do it? I think that we need to get those serveries in place as fast as possible. We need to find the funding to make sure that they can afford to put them in the schools. And then we need to deliver nutritious school meals in our primary schools with an educational programme about what nutritious food is all about, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy?
Yes, please, sir. What sort of time scale would the candidate put on that work?
I would love to put a timescale of tomorrow, Deputy, but the work has to go on. We have to get the planning applications in. We have to make sure that we get the funding and the serveries in. There is already a piece of work being done with Caring Cooks, who are doing an amazing job of putting in some schools the meals. We need to go faster. We need to go better, and that is certainly the message that I've sent out.
Deputy Gruville?
What are your plans for reducing the waiting list for children's mental health?
I thank the Deputy for a question. So the waiting list has been an issue going on, and COVID has not helped us in employing social workers or health workers or mental health workers into the department. I can inform the Assembly that we have managed to now recruit a number of healthcare workers and mental health workers into the department. We are seeing that children now are seeing the same mental health worker consistently across the problems. There is still a lot on the waiting list, but we have started to manage to recruit. We need to recruit a few more. That will get our waiting list. And now that we're away from most of the problems of COVID, I expect that to take a real forward step.
Supplementary, Deputy Gruville?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Masson?
Thank you, sir. The candidate in his opening speech spoke about the retraining strategy. I wonder if he could elaborate on what his vision for that area is and what he'd like to see achieved.
thank the Deputy for his question. The retraining strategy is about making sure that the island has education for all islanders. It's about lifelong learning. I want to make sure that people who want to learn in later life have educational opportunities, and there are programs in place for them to go and get different qualifications. I want to make sure the retraining strategy is about people. If we lose certain sectors of our economy because they're overtaken by digital or other means, or no longer necessary, that the people have opportunities that work there to retrain and go into other areas that might interest them. So it's absolutely desperate that we have something in place, working with Highlands to make sure that the right courses are in place, the right funding's in place, is what the retraining strategy is all about.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Yes, thank you, sir. And is the candidate able to identify any issues with the social security system, and does the candidate have any experience with the social security system that would also contribute to the retraining strategy? Thank you, sir.
I think there's one area which is some of the courses that will be set up will have a cost associated to them, and people on income support will not be able to afford those costs. So we either have to increase level of funding through social security to help them be able to have a learning opportunity, or we have to remove the cost associated for certain people for those courses. We've seen already with Digital Jersey, there was a course that was being run that had a £300 cost to it, so, and the uptake was fair but low. Under the fiscal stimulus package, we put in some money to actually remove that cost and fully fund it, and we could probably do the course 4 times over with the amount of interest due to removing that one barrier to a digital course.
Comment Arbison, John?
Thank you, sir. What will the candidate do to convince fellow ministers to change isolation rules for under 18s?
So I have already started that piece of work. We met with competent authorities last night. It's not in my power to say what the decision was, but there has been movement about mitigating and stopping the isolation of children in schools from direct contacts. That news will come out shortly, Deputy.
Supplemental, Comment Arb?
Thank you, sir.
Senator Moore?
Thank you, sir. The candidate talked about his visit to officers in the Children's Department. However, could the candidate describe how he would propose to improve the trust and confidence that users of the service have?
I think there's a large piece of work going on right now, Senator, which is about improving services. It's about increasing the number of staff so the caseloads are down. It's there's more work around that area. We've got an inclusion officer that looks at a lot of these things. Our plan for children's social care services sets out many objectives about improving confidence, improving frameworks, improving rules, improving on how people can complain about whether they've got the right service or not. So I believe in continuing with the plan that was set out on our plan, but there is plenty of work going on about creating a better and a better service, a better framework, and a better reporting.
Supplemental, Senator?
No, thank you, sir, given the number of people who wish to ask.
Indeed, Deputy Ayer?
Thank you, sir. The candidate mentioned in his speech that he wants to ensure everyone can afford to go to university. How does he intend to fund the ever-increasing cost of higher education? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Well, there's a piece of work going on right now that I started with Deputy Massel, which is looking at the higher education funding. It's looking about how we make sure that the funding is set up so that the people on the lowest incomes can have funding. Of course, the funding will have to come from somewhere, you're absolutely right. But I think that if we look at how we spend money, we need to make sure that there is a priority done on that. the piece of work that's going on right now is looking at possible funding mechanisms. It's looking at thresholds. And of course, funding is not the only barrier to people on low income families from going to university. We also have to make sure that within the education reform programme and the work that we're doing, that we help them get the exam results they need so they can get the places in the university at the same time.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Nothing further.
Very much. Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. Does the deputy really think that it's appropriate to try and encourage every child to go to university?
No, I think it's appropriate that every child that wishes to go to university has the best possible options to go to university, and that could be out of Ireland or at our very good campus of Highlands doing university degrees locally, which I think we should be doing more of.
Supplemental, Senator?
Yes, just because a child wishes to go to university, should they not consider a practical, is what they wish to do totally appropriate to give them a career in the future? Is there no practicality applied to this? What will the applicant...
Could you please put your question succinctly?
Yes, sir. No, leave it, sir. I just am speechless. Thank you.
I can answer, sir.
Deputy, well, if you divine the question, please do answer it.
So I don't think it's in my right to tell any child whether that it's right for them to go to university or point them in the direction of going to an apprenticeship scheme or just working in just going and getting a job. It is up to that child and their wishes of what they want to have in later life, and it's up to their parents to work with them and the schools to work with them to decide what's their best path that will make them happy and give them the best opportunities. So.
Deputy Gardner. Deputy Gardner. Deputy Gardner. I'm sorry, I must move on. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. I'll ask the same question for all candidates. What pedagogic approach would the candidate like to see developed in Jersey schools in the future?
I missed the first question.
So, one question. What pedagogic approach would the candidate like to see developed in Jersey schools?
Well, I have no idea what the question means there. Could he elaborate?
Pedagogic approach. It's the style of teaching, the form of teaching.
So, all children learn differently in schools. They either learn from practicality, or they learn from reading, or they learn from writing. I think that schools have a responsibility to understand how each child learns best and make sure that that's put in place. And only the teachers working with children directly will be able to understand that. So I think that our education system should make sure that we, the teachers are aware of how a child best learns and make sure that's put into practice for that child. It shouldn't be done as one way of learning and the child has to learn that way. It should be done in multiple ways to get the best outcomes.
Supplemental, Deputy Southern.
Thank you.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. We all probably remembered long debate in December if to close our school or to keep them open. As COVID cases rises, we might face the same dilemma in nearest future. I would like to know views of the candidates on this issue.
I thank the Deputy for her question. I think that we need to make sure schools are open as long as possible in the safest possible way. We know that currently under COVID, we have a much lower risk profile due to double vaccinations. There's a much lower risk to harm of being in hospital for younger people. So for me, my priority will be to keep schools open as safely as possible and make sure as many children can attend that school so that our rules aren't as too stringent. I don't want to see massive cases or clusters of COVID within schools. I want to make sure that our children are safe. but their educational outcomes are extremely important. And I absolutely have been fighting to make sure that we have as many children in school learning as possible, or at home, making sure that there is still education happening at home if they have to be there because of COVID.
Well, that brings the time, Gregory, I think I'm right in saying that brings the time to a conclusion that's available for questions to this candidate. Deputy Wigginton, may I ask you now to withdraw from the chamber, and could Deputy Ward be invited to enter the chamber, please? Do you need a moment, Deputy, or?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure I've installed more stairs since the last time we were here.
I'll give you a few seconds whilst I make that sense.
Okay, shall I start, sir?
Yes, Deputy Ward, you have 10 minutes. Please start.
Thank you, sir, and I thank members for their consideration today. So we are at a crucial point for the future of children and education in Jersey. We have both the opportunity and the risk of emerging from the pandemic with either an education system, a children's service, and mental health care, which are ready for the challenges of the future, or we risk that large amounts of spend will be misdirected or even wasted without the change and development that we need as we move forward, plus the danger that the support we offer does not reach those who need it. So this is a significant time because we have several reviews that are either reporting back or completed, which will have an impact long-term into the future. And we have a change to the positioning of mental health provision for young people into SIPES that is hugely important. So now is the time for someone to take on the ministerial role. Just put my camera on, sir. Sorry, I realised I hadn't put my camera on. Now is the time for someone to take on the ministerial role who knows, understands and has experience of education and has spent their career putting children first in all of their roles. I offer these qualities and this experience from 25 years of teaching, 20 years of which are in Jersey schools. This included the pastoral role of form tutor throughout my time. From my leadership of a department within a school and experience of senior leadership in school, I have been responsible for the delivery of the science and psychology curriculum to thousands of young people on this island, always within very limited financial constraints. I've worked to support and train teachers starting out in the profession, and I have supported numerous young people at times of challenge in their lives with dedication and care. I demonstrated my leadership in the teachers' unions as elected president of the Jersey branch of the National Education Union. This required both excellent organisation and a wide understanding of the issues facing the profession and subsequently the young people teachers work with every day. I have experience of working for the OCR exam board as a senior marker and team leader. thus giving me a clear view of the issues around examinations and the challenges that have been faced by students in the last 2 years in particular. I also took the role of work experience coordinator in school. This enabled me to gain an excellent understanding of the skills needs of our economy and support young people who maybe experience the world of work for the first time. Again, organising a team of staff to visit each student individually to ensure their well-being and that they gain the maximum from their experience of work. And so I bring lived experience to the role of Children's Minister. I would have been classified as a looked after child when I was 17 and I left home. I have experienced the uncertainty that comes with this. I worked and attended evening classes to gain A-levels required for university and became the first member of my family to obtain a degree. This certainly demonstrates my determination to succeed and break down the barriers to success. So why stand now? There are some very important areas of work that need to be led by the Minister. In the children's remit, the changes to the children's law and incorporation of the UNCRC, the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, need to be led and brought to the Assembly. The outcomes of the school funding review and big education conversation need to be acted upon. And we have 2 very key reviews ongoing, those into school inclusion and the education reform programme. All of these areas need oversight and drive from the Minister to see them through and get the best outcomes for children and families. I have the drive, the skills, the determination to do this. I believe I have demonstrated through my work in this Assembly since day 1 of my election. I have worked with members from across the Assembly on scrutiny and with propositions that I have brought. I believe I am known as a very hard-working States member who constantly displays a professional and inclusive approach to my work. I would bring this to the ministerial role. I have also taken the time to use the education opportunities offered to us by the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, undertaking and graduating from the Certificate of Parliamentary Governance course with McGill University in Canada in the last year, practicing what I preach in terms of lifelong education and developing my knowledge and leadership skills accordingly. We need a specialist in the role, someone who has the well-being and the future of our children at the heart of their decision-making. This has been the basis of my career in education in all the roles I've detailed. The primary concern of all those who work with children should be the children's well-being and how we can enable them to develop their full potential. We also need someone I would characterise as emergency actions. For example, delays to decisions regarding the education estate risks leaving some of our children in inadequate facilities. What message does this send them about how we value them? We must send a clear message to these young people that they matter to us, cut through the red tape and slow decision-making process and get on with the actions needed. So I have frontline experience of the education of our children. I have done the work that as Minister I will be expecting others to do. This gives me a clear insight into the challenges and where we can build upon successes. So I understand the challenges faced by the Children's Service post-care inquiry and currently from my work on scrutiny. There is a real wish to make improvement, but there needs to be a minister that is both supportive of this change and ready to make the challenges necessary, and indeed have the difficult conversations that will be necessary. I have the character and experience to do this. So families should not be in fear of Children's Service. Children should not be at the whim of bureaucratic decision-making processes, nor should everyone working with children need to be a hero because they are fighting against a system that is inadequate. We need a minister that will support the building of a team of dedicated professionals and hold them to account whilst being held to account by this Assembly. So I have the experience of building a team to work together as a head of department with highly qualified and dedicated staff, all of whom held professional qualifications and had many years of experience in their field. As an elected leader of a union that represented a professional body, I worked to develop the positive work of the organisation and supported campaigns that directly improved children's experience of school. Within my work in this Assembly, I have worked across political viewpoints and been approachable and professional in all of my actions. So I have been respectful to this Assembly and our democracy. I've also worked hard to change your view of Reform Jersey. I'm pleased to see so many are now considering party politics, and I look forward to future alliances being declared. Education is the key to unlock the futures of not just young people, but the futures of this island and its place in the world. So much has been said about population, but let's be sure about one thing. Any approach to population will fail if we do not address the education, training and skilling of our workforce and our current population. From cradle to grave, education must be a lifelong process. Otherwise, the resource of experience is lost and we do not address the changing skills need in our society. And we must address the false dichotomy between academic and vocational education. It simply does not fit the modern world and the needs for this island into the future. Modern productive and effective economies are breaking this divide. Even the UK, which I do not see as the best model for education, is trying to do this with the development of T-levels, as one example. The post-16 report from our scrutiny panel addressed this issue, and that the need of greater cooperation between post-16 providers. Not to lose the identity of these providers, but to have a system based on educational needs and ambitions of our children and young people, rather than what can be provided within the boundaries of institutions. This needs to be handled intelligently and with consideration of how we future-proof our structures. Therefore, the education reform programme is crucial and cannot be merely a HR exercise which rearranges the seats while the ship is bringing on water. It must not be a mini target operating model for education. The ministers should understand the context of education in the wider world, understand how pedagogy impacts upon learning. Pedagogy refers to the method and practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or theoretical concept. Put simply, do we have students with the skills to learn and develop, or are we simply creating vessels of facts that limit creativity, enjoyment, and genuine lifelong learning capability? So throughout my professional career, I've worked to help children develop their skills, abilities, and life chances. To do this, you have to be an advocate for children, families, and the education profession. I bring this vital quality to this role. It is time to bring stability to this ministerial role and ensure there is a genuine advocacy for children and education at the table of the Council of Ministers. To bring the qualities I brought to my profession to the role of Minister, and sir, I ask members for their vote today and to support me in my role as Minister for Children and Housing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. There is now a period of 20 minutes for questions to Deputy Ward. Deputy Haggerab.
Thank you, sir. What has the Deputy done personally during his time in the Assembly to improve the lives of children and young people?
Thank you, Deputy, and straight in with a direct question. So the first thing I did in this Assembly was to bring an amendment to the Common Strategic Policy to try and increase headroom funding in schools. That is the money left after teachers were paid, and that's what money spent directly on children. So it is rejected by the Assembly, but ironically, 2 years later in the funding review, we were told that what we need to do is increase headroom funding and increase funding for schools, and I'm pleased to see that happening. So I have chaired an education scrutiny panel. We have brought amendments to the Children's Commissioner law, which gave many more powers for the Children's Commissioner who were necessary and needed. We have brought amendments to increase pupil premium to protect monies for schools. Personally, I have tried to bring a number of things that I still feel are positive for children. I do not see how charging our children to go to school and then not giving them food while they're there is really putting children first. So these are a few of the things that I've tried to do. I've also, sir, been an advocate for children from the panel. We have met with many groups that deal with children and the citizens panel, for example, in order to understand the context of the issues that are going on. And so I would continue that dialogue. Dialogue is the key to all of these things.
Supplementary, Deputy Haber.
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. How would the candidate address the problem of the ageing stock of town schools, such as Janburn School and Ridge Boyle School? And would he propose the building of a new primary school on a different site in St Helier? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Deputy from St Helier, and I understand his concerns. Yes, sir. The reality is that we do need a new primary school in the centre of St Helier as we increase population. And I'll come back to that at the end because there are other issues that are important there. But so that isn't going to happen very quickly. That isn't going to be built within 6 months. So what we do need, and I refer to emergency situations in my speech, is to address the needs of those schools. I can give you a specific example from a visit that I had to Roosbouillon School. So they need I think it's a figure of £30,000, which in terms of government spend is absolute peanuts, so that they can landscape and develop an area outside one of their year groups so that the children in that school have a decent area to play and be outside. So they don't have that at the moment, and during this pandemic, it is essential that they have it. I would push for emergency funding for some of those projects, which are so clearly needed, so that we can improve the lives of the children now. We cannot wait till the next election. We cannot just wait long term for a new plans and schools to be looked at. We need to take some actions now. There are some wonderful school buildings on this island, but some of the school buildings in the centre of town are inadequate, and so we need to address that issue urgently.
Supplemental, Deputy Ayer.
Nothing further, sir.
Senator Meze.
Thanks, sir. Same question that I asked the previous candidate. Could this candidate explain what his definition of the term corporate parenting is, and could he explain how he would proceed in implementing the care inquiry recommendation on introducing corporate parenting legislation?
Thank you, sir. And it needs to be put in a context. And I thought about this really carefully when we talked about corporate parenting. So I'm a parent. Before my children were born, I'd wake up every morning and I'd think, what am I going to do today? What am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? How many hours have I got to work? What am I going to do after work? After my children were born, immediately my first thought when I woke up was, what are my children going to eat? What are they going to wear? Am I going to have an argument with my daughter over putting her shoes on as we leave the house? Who's going to pick them up today? And what happened was that they were first and foremost in my thinking. What a corporate parent to me is that the States Assembly and all government organisations has that consideration when we look to the future of our young people. Corporate parenting is about us taking a responsibility as elected representatives to say that we will take that type of attitude of thinking about children and their well-being first in all the decision-making processes. However, I don't think that what we've done as an Assembly is actually sit down as an Assembly to talk about what that means to everybody. Because I think what I would have spoken about there will be a common ground to every single parent in this Assembly. That's what happens when you're a parent. We need to find a common ground of understanding what is meant by corporate parent. So there isn't, I think, an automatic attitude of, oh, that's just a token gesture. It really isn't, and it's something that we need to sit down and address.
Supplemental, Senator?
Yes, sir. I referred in the first question to the care inquiry recommendation on introducing corporate parenting legislation. Would he continue to see that as a priority to be introduced? And I guess more widely, does he still feel that the care inquiry recommendations need to form part of setting the agenda for the work that the Minister for Children and Education will do in the future?
Yes, and I apologise for not answering that part of the question. Yes, I do believe corporate parenting needs to come to the Assembly formally. But it needs to be understood by the Assembly as well as to what that corporate parenting means. So the two things go hand in hand. It needs to be brought into by the Assembly, but also led by the Minister and the Council of Ministers and the Chief Minister is important. Yes, the care inquiry recommendations are vital. A huge amount of money was spent on the care inquiry. Many people gave evidence which was incredibly difficult for them to give. Many people relive their experiences. If we do not take account of that, we are failing as an Assembly, not just those people, but the future of this island. So yes, absolutely, we need to take account of that.
Deputy Ash? Deputy Ash?
Yes, thank you, sir. In the 3 years that we've been in this Assembly, sir, the Reform Party have had 3 ministers or assistant ministers. They have all walked away from office. Why then, sir, should we trust the candidate as a member of that party with our children's education and run the risk that he will do the same?
Thank you, sir, and I thank you, the Deputy. Thank the Deputy for that question. So leadership is difficult. It means difficult decisions. And the movement away from government, from both Reform members and non-Reform members, was around a particular issue around the ex-CEO or whatever his title is now. So this situation I consider to be an emergency situation. We have had instability in the role of the Education and Children's Minister that cannot be allowed to continue. When you lead, you have to do two things. One, you have to step up to the plate at the right time and take responsibility. And two, you have to leave tribal loyalties behind and look forward. Sir, what we have done in reform is learn that. We have moved forward so much in our 3 or 4 years here. That's why we keep being spoken, sir. I will give my dedication to this role just as I would have as a teacher to my role, as an educator in general. So I spoke in my speech about the necessity of a specialist to be in this role. If we do not have that, somebody who brings the skills like I do, then we risk making the wrong decisions at the wrong time for the wrong people. So that's why I'm standing for this, and that's why I put my dedication into this role.
Supplemental, Deputy Ash.
Yes, please, sir. Does he concede, though, sir? I take on board what he said, that his party recently set themselves up as an opposition party. They declared that they would oppose this government. How does he reconcile that with now wishing to work with this government?
Thank you, sir. And that's a really important point about our governance. So we do not have party politics in government at the moment. If there was a party, a declared party running government, yes, it'd be very difficult for me to do this. But sir, what I believe that we need in this assembly is a move forward so that we understand that governance consists of government and opposition and scrutiny. 3 parts of a triangle that gives stability and strength to governance. So we do not have that. So therefore, we are left with a very difficult decision. Do we just let it run and have people who are not specialists taking on roles which are so vital at the moment, or do we step up to take on those roles? Sir, we've made the decision, both as a party and me as an individual, and with support from across the Assembly, as we've seen, that I will step up to that role, and I will give it my dedication, and I will be an advocate for children and education throughout my time there. So there are common themes that the government agrees with on reducing income inequality and the common strategic policy of putting children first. That's got to be more than just a slogan. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Connie Tarbison-Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Schools in the island haven't generally worked closely with some of their respective parishes. What are the candidates' views on political and local community issues being part of the education curriculum, apart from, of course, the visit to this chamber organised by our esteemed Greg? Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you for the question. It's a really interesting one. There's 2 things. Whenever we try and put anything into the curriculum, we need to know what's going to go in if we put it in there. And that is a real genuine question for all schools. And there will be schools sat there going, please don't put anything more in the curriculum. However, I think the link with parishes is vital for schools, and we see it all of the time. I think an understanding of parish politics and island politics in schools is essential. It does happen often in the PHSE curriculum. Indeed, sir, I could say to the constable, I've actually taught it myself and had a phenomenal lesson. If you ask children to make their own manifestos up, by the way, you get some very, very interesting ideas. Quite scary at times, but really insightful. So I think it does happen. But yes, I would actually encourage that. It needs to happen because we need to engage young people in our electoral process. And we need to remember one thing. People can vote here at the age of 16. The voting age in Jersey is 16, one of the most progressive steps of any jurisdiction in the world. If we're going to give that voting age at 16, I think we owe it to children to have an understanding of our processes, both parish and this assembly. And I would reiterate your point about the what they run in the assembly, the Gref runs. And I will honestly say that I think one of my most useful pieces of learning about this assembly was coming to watch that. I learned more about the process of the assembly than I think I learned anywhere else. Thank you, sir.
Supplemental, Connie Tubb?
Yes, please, sir. To add to the Deputy's response, can I ask him how he would encourage first-time voters, in addition to what he's already mentioned?
Yes, thank you, sir. The first thing we need to do is have relevance to the voting public. They need to understand the systems, and we need to enable those systems to be accessible to all. I've talked about lifelong education as well, and education does not stop at the age of 18 when students go off to university and do their education elsewhere or go to the University Upper Highlands. It's got to be lifelong, and I think an important part of the education process is saying to people, you are part of a democratic process. And I would go as far as to say that you have a duty to understand and participate, because It's a privilege. There are so many places around the world that do not have that. We do. And if you want to influence, if you don't like something that your constable's doing, get involved and do something about it. I think the issue of social media is a problem because people feel that social media comments are political involvement. Often they're not, because it's very easy to do behind the screen, but actually to go out there and stand and talk about what you believe to be happening in the future is not an easy thing to do. And the reason I can work across the Assembly, one of the simple reasons is I understand that everybody in this Assembly has put themselves forward. Now, I may not agree with people politically some of the time, but I do understand that we've all had the courage to step up to the plate and say, look, I'm going to be that face in the Assembly. Sorry, that last bit may not be entirely relevant, but I thought I'd put it in there. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. And had there been time, I would have asked this same question of the previous candidate. I would like to ask Deputy Ward, culture and arts are often seen as the second cousin to STEM subjects. What would you do to, or what importance do you place on culture and the arts, and what would you do to ensure that they maintain a standing within the education system?
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Deputy for his question, because he hits on a really important point about education. Another example of false dichotomies that I mentioned between vocational and academic education is this false split between arts and sciences. If you look at some of the great sciences, the scientists, they were also artists, for example. That's the simplest way to put it. Everybody has a creative streak that needs to be used. In schools, what we have done, because and my opinion is very simple. We have moved ourselves down the line of UK education systems that has put an emphasis on treating children as a commodity. And when you do that, you have to have something that you can quantify. The easiest things to quantify are maths, science, and, well, they say English, but I actually don't know how you quantify English. And what's happened in that process of trying to measure is the loss of the creative subjects such as art, music, dance, drama, which are so important for our children to develop. I am a musician myself, although many will say you're not a musician, you're a drummer, but I deny that. I object to that comment. And it's one of the most pleasurable things that I do. I am also, my degree was in science, and I taught science for many years. They must not be in competition with each other. However, what we need to do is we need to deal with the curriculum appropriately. It's not about making subjects compulsory, it's about enabling them to happen. One example is, what are we going to do with language teaching on the island? It was lost from the curriculum, and I think that was a huge mistake. I think every child should have access to a language because it develops the mind, it develops you culturally, and it opens what you're doing. We cannot just bombard our children with maths, English, and science, although I think they're obviously important. There is the ability for a balance to be had there, and that's what needs to be found. To put simply, sir, I'd say to the Deputy, let's move away from the UK system and look a little bit wider.
Supplemental, Deputy Morell?
Yes, please, sir. Linked to culture and arts is, of course, heritage and the island's heritage. What value do you place on the teaching of history and Jersey's heritage, and how would you incorporate it into the curriculum?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And again, a very good point. So this island has a phenomenal amount of heritage and history that we need to learn about, because what it does, it gives you a context about where you are and your surroundings. So, sir, that does need to be addressed. I do believe, sir, that primary schools deal with this very well. And what's happened again, it seems to be lost in secondary schools as the overwhelming amount of curriculum content is thrown in there. It's because we have an exam system based upon knowledge base rather than anything else. There needs to be a space for our young people to understand their standing in the world. And to go back to the previous question from the Constable of St. Bernard's, that is where we get an understanding of our processes. Our history and our processes means that people are more likely to engage in our political system and then in our island in general. People do engage in our island, but they tend to do it through charity groups and through volunteer organisations. There's a resource out there, and I agree with the Deputy, sir, that it's not being used to its fullest extent.
Deputy Martin.
Thank you, sir. Since declaring your candidacy for education and children's services, have you been to visit the children's services team to hear directly from the team and their worries or concerns or what is happening down in that department? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. No, sir, since last week when I declared my candidacy, I haven't been able to do that. However, sir, I will remind the Deputy I chair the Children Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel, and we have regular meetings with the children's team. I attend the corporate parenting board, although that has not sat for some time due to the problems with the ministerial role and where that was going. We've had regular briefings from them on children's law, on UNCRC, on the role of the Children's Commissioner, on the mental health review, on the repositioning of CAMS, on the what other areas are there off the top of my head? I think I've named quite a few there. So I think the advantage I've got is I know the people who are involved. We have a good relationship in scrutiny with them, which is open and honest and inquisitive, and I think it's not a large step for me to take that on further, and I certainly would be up to speed on the issues that they face.
Supplemental, Deputy.
Yes, thank you, sir. Can I ask the candidate his feeling on that there is one DG for SIPES, which is both education and children's services, and does he agree that that is a very good position, one DG answering to one minister and not two?
So I'm not entirely sure. And the reason I'm not entirely sure is what we've created there is a very large department with one person who has got huge amounts of responsibility to one minister. In terms of the splitting of the children's and the education's remit, I think that is an issue that does need to be looked at and addressed again. And there is one simple reason. The children's minister needs to be the political accountability of what we are doing for children all of the time. That role, to some extent, to put simply, sir, needs to be a pain in the neck for every other minister in terms of what they are doing for children in their roles, to put simply. The structure we have at the moment, we can work with, and we can work with because it is, to some extent, a clear defining of roles and accountability, which is good, and I take that on board. But so I think what you need to do is, with any new structure, you need to review whether it's working as we believe it should. And in terms of the Director Generals in general, if you excuse the pun, we need to review very soon whether the roles that they've taken are too large, whether they are actually working in terms of accountability with ministers and how they work. That's one of the things I think we need to do in the next few months, and then report back to this Assembly and make a decision as to whether there is going to be a change. It's clear as to what the Chief Minister wants to do. That's why I'm applying today for the Children's and Education Minister role. And I know they're big roles, but I believe that I can certainly perform them.
Deputy Greville.
What are your plans for reducing the waiting list for children's mental health?
Thank you, Deputy. And it's one I mentioned in my speech. I know that Deputy Poynton has been doing an enormous amount of work on that. We've had briefings from on the scrutiny panel.
Sorry, you have to stop. Deputy, thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
Very well. Well, Deputy Ward, I would now ask you to withdraw from the chamber, and I would ask that Deputy Dublé is invited to enter the chamber. Would you like a moment just to gather your breath and thoughts, Sir Deputy? Yes, Deputy Dewbley, you have 10 minutes. Please start.
Thank you, sir. What I think is most important is that we have a Minister for Children and Education who is absolutely passionate about listening to children and young people, actually hearing what they have to say, and acting selflessly at all times in their best interests, which ultimately are the interests of the island as a whole. We were all children once, and we all carry our childhood with us. What I promise is that if members entrust me with this role, they could do exactly that. Trust me to be a stable, steady hand, overseeing the well-being of our island's children and young people. My aim would be to ensure that initiatives started by previous ministers are seen through, that head teachers have what they need to care for and educate the children in their schools, and parents and agencies have what they need to help children thrive and ultimately become good Jersey citizens. I would continue to put children at the heart of everything I do. I have some overarching principles which would inform the way I make decisions in this role. Children and young people of all ages deserve to be safe, respected, and listened to. Secondly, children's rights must be upheld. They must be taught about these and their accompanying responsibilities. And thirdly, children have different developmental needs at different times of their life. We must understand what these needs are and provide an environment and a society which gives them what they need to thrive at each stage. I have many aims and aspirations for specific things I would like to see within the children, young people, education and skills remit. I have a vision for a society where every baby that is born into every family, no matter what their background, receives care, education and support from the very start that allows them to achieve not just in an academic or vocational sense, but to become decent human beings who care for each other, who care for their families and older members of society, who look after this planet we all live on together, and who contribute to making it a better place, and who ultimately enjoy a connected and fulfilled life in the time that they have. However, my 3 key achievable objectives for the next few months are: 1, progressing the education reform programme. I'm committed to maintaining the work streams for this project, and the main areas I will have a rigorous focus on are the Uplift to Jersey Premium, improving teacher professional development, and improving the mental health and well-being of our children and young people. Senator Valois should be absolutely applauded for the work she has initiated in these areas, and I'm committed to providing continuity here. Secondly, I will publish the report of the Early Years Policy Development Board and work towards achieving the policy proposals within that report. I stand by my commitments to the 1001 Days initiative, and will explore ways we can sustainably support children and families from much earlier than the current nursery funding at 3 years old. Thirdly, I am committed to progressing work which prioritises children's rights, including lodging the new Children and Young People's Law. It is critical that a requirement for a Children and Young People's strategic plan is put in place, and I am also committed to work which will improve corporate parenting arrangements. In regards to the dual ministerial role that we're discussing today, I do think that they should have been two distinct remits. Even though these roles have not been separated, as I believe they should have been, I would be dedicated to both aspects of the portfolio. I will not let the Children's Minister role fade away. I will continue to make children's rights an area of priority. I have a good and constructive relationship with the Children's Commissioner and many of the professionals and agencies involved in the care and education of children on the island, and of course, many families and children themselves. It was my own in-principle proposition in the wake of the care inquiry, which called for the UNCRC to be incorporated into our legislation, for states' employees to receive training, and for ministers to add careers to propositions they bring to the Assembly. I remain committed to these principles and aims, and would be well placed to see them through as a member of the government. Having scrutinised the children and education ministers for the last 6.5 years as chair and member of the relevant panels, I'm prepared to hit the ground running on the ministerial side. In the 7 to 8 years before being elected to this Assembly, I had extensive experience working as a qualified teacher specialising in early years. I was also lucky to have the opportunity to work in around half of our 30+ primary schools during my time as a supply teacher. This gave me the opportunity to interact with children, head teachers, staff, parents, and other people who make up the communities of our schools from the east to the west of the island. I was also a member of the Jersey branch of the National Union for Teachers. I served on the committee as secretary, a role which I held alongside my full-time teaching duties, which in themselves often spanned 60 to 70 hours of the week. Working with the NUT allowed me to gain additional insight into the needs of secondary school students and teachers. It also gave me my first look behind the scenes at government during the regular meetings between the minister at the time and union reps. I fully intend to hold such meetings myself if I am appointed to this role. I understand that good teachers are the most powerful tool we have to improve life for our children, and thus we must respect them, listen to them, and give them autonomy. In terms of my own educational background, as well as my PGCE, I have a degree in psychology and sociology from the University of Exeter, and it is this background in psychology that informs both my deep understanding of children from conception to early adulthood and my absolute commitment to taking an evidence-based approach to everything that I bring to this Assembly. I hope members will give me the opportunity to progress the 3 key areas I have set out today: education reform, early years and children's rights, and allow me a chance to help shape the tone and culture of government in an area that I have unwavering passion for and commitment to. Finally, sir, I want to end by speaking directly to the children of our island. I'm here for you. I will listen to you. I will act in your interests.
Thank you very much, Deputy. There is now a period of 20 minutes of questions to Deputy Doublé. Connétable of St Brelade.
Thank you, sir. Schools in the island haven't generally worked closely with some of their respective parishes. What are the candidates' views on political and local community issues being part of the education curriculum, apart from the visits to the State's chamber here organised by the GREF? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. This is something that when I was a teacher, I actually was the part of the first school to install the Rights Respecting Schools initiative at Greville School, and I led the steering group for that. And actually, I remember the Deputy of Greville, I invited her in, and we invited members of the parish municipality into the school to speak directly with the children. So it was me as the teacher, but actually it was the children speaking to representatives from the parish. And that was a light bulb moment for me, because I hadn't been aware of some of the community aspects outside the school until then. So from that moment, I have seen the value of that. And I think we have to remember that, yes, children are not adults and they need our care and they need our protection, but they are also citizens in their own right, and they deserve to be part of our communities just as much as the adults do. So yeah, I would encourage that within all schools. And I think the fact that our Rights Respecting Schools programme is actually spreading across more and more of our schools with the support of the Children's Commissioner, and that concept of community is embedded within that programme, and it's something that I think will only grow as the Rights Respecting Schools approach grows across the schools.
Supplemental pointer.
Thank you, sir. Yes, and how would the candidate encourage first-time voters?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I think sometimes teachers have been scared to talk about politics, and I think as Education Minister I would send a clear message to teachers that you need to encourage your students to vote, because 16-year-olds are in schools and they have these rights that we've given them, and I want 16-year-olds to be as passionate about politics as I am. So I would, first of all, I would show them that passion myself, and I would try and transmit that passion to the head teachers and the teachers. And I think they need permission to speak to the students about it, and I would make that explicit and encourage them to do that, but also kind of give them a good guidelines and a structure within which to do that. And I'm actually part of the political engagement group which Deputy Alves chairs as part of PPC. So hopefully there would be some actual resources that we can give to the teachers so that they perhaps feel more comfortable in talking about politics, because I think that's where the real conversations can happen, that can spark interest in children to actually go and exercise those rights that are so valuable and so important that we've given them.
Deputy Haggerah.
Thank you, sir. What has the Deputy done personally during her time in the Assembly to improve the rights, or the lives, I should say, of children and young people?
Thank you. I think when I entered the Assembly, I didn't have specific things that I started on initially. The first thing that came up was me reacting to a minister's proposition. It was the discrimination law, and I looked through that draft law. I remember being in the briefing, and then as now I looked for how was this affecting children. That's something that has been a principle that I've had as a teacher, and I got that from strong leadership from the head teachers I worked with. We were taught every single initiative or lesson that you have, you think, how can this help the children in my care? So I looked through that anti-discrimination law, and I noted some areas that were not quite, I suppose, upholding the rights of children, although I didn't frame it in that language at the time. And it was the breastfeeding rights for mothers to breastfeed their children. And in the draft law, it was only for children, for babies up to 6 months of age. So again, as I always do, I went and did my research. I looked at the World Health Organization to see what they said about breastfeeding, and I brought that to the chamber. And within my first year of being a States member, I think the first few months, I was able to directly amend legislation to give children more rights in an area that actually, I now know is so important. I've since become a passionate advocate for breastfeeding, and that's one of the things that I'm proudest of. But being chair of the scrutiny panel last term and being a member of the scrutiny panel this term as well is something that I see as being really valuable. And if I was minister, I would like to maintain that, because I know the value of good scrutiny. We can't make effective decisions without that check and balance. So I actually think my work on scrutiny, especially some of the challenges that I've brought from scrutiny in terms of gaining extra funding for education, general funding, the Nursery Education Fund. There was a lot of debate around that a couple of years ago, and again, with evidence and research and showing what children need and what the science says about what children need and what we should be providing them, was able to help, overturn the cutbacks there.
Do you wish a supplementary, Deputy?
No, thank you, sir.
Senator Meze?
Thank you, sir. Could the candidate explain what her definition of the term corporate parenting is, and explain how she would proceed in implementing the Care Inquiry recommendation on introducing corporate parenting legislation?
Thank you. I thank the member for the question. This is actually something that I was reading up about recently, because I understand that our legislation in this area needs updating. And personally, when the Care Inquiry was published, which I read as much of it as I could and was very moved by it, and obviously brought my proposition in the days after the publication of the Care Inquiry. One of the things that really moved me was when States members were addressed directly as corporate parents, and we were told, you have to improve, you have responsibilities as a corporate parent, and you have to improve what you're doing for children. And I have felt somewhat lost as a non-executive member, and not being a minister and not actually having any actual power to do anything for children that are effectively in our care. So I would relish the chance to chair the Corporate Parenting Board as it is, and to see through the legislation that is currently in draft form, because I know that the aim of that board is to ask, would this be good enough for my child? And that's been my approach to everything that I do so far. So I would relish the opportunity to see that through.
Supplemental, Senator?
Yeah, and following on from that answer, would she see it as important to, alongside providing for improved legislation and restarting the corporate parenting board, to look at providing wider corporate parenting training and opportunities for people in the public service to understand what the term means and how they need to apply it in practice?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. And I know we've discussed training for States members. I think that's something that we all need to be committed to, but certainly the workforce as well. And it's all of this language that we have, Corporate Parenting Board, and the abbreviations. Actually, it's about love, and we can love our own children, but we can also love citizens that we represent, and we can act with that love and compassion. That was always the way that I taught my class. They were little humans that I cared about, and I carried that through in my work, and I try to bring that to my work as a States member. I think every child needs to have love and support, and I think as a government we should be trying to do that and actually see those children as human beings who have something to offer, and help to give them what they need to thrive, just as we would our own children.
Deputy Ash?
Thank you, sir. So the candidate stated that she feels teachers should discuss politics with children. Is she not concerned about the politicising of our schools?
No, I'm not actually, because politics is everything. So everything that teachers are teaching our children has a political side to it. History is politics. Sociology is politics. PSHE is politics. No, I don't think teachers would be saying you should vote for this candidate. And of course, they wouldn't be doing that. But I do think teachers should be setting out principles to the children in their charge of the importance of voting and the importance of researching who you're going to vote for, and of children actually knowing their own values and knowing what they think is important and looking for that in candidates. And I think teachers are highly educated individuals. They know the difference between saying vote for this candidate, which they would never do, and they know how to talk about a subject. So we need to treat teachers as the intelligent, educated professionals that they are, and equip them with the resources they need to have those discussions with the young people in their care.
Supplemental, Deputy Ash?
Yes, please, sir. Does the candidate not feel that children should be taught to think, not what to think?
Yes, I totally agree with that. And in fact, my dissertation was on philosophy for children, which is a thinking skills program, which, yes, that's something I'm very, very much behind. And I have several books which I could lend to the member if he would like to know the theory behind teaching children to think and not teaching them how to think. We would never teach a child what to think. That is completely the opposite of my ethos. So I'm pleased the member agrees with me.
Comment Arbison John.
Thank you, sir. If successful, what would the candidate do to convince fellow ministers to change isolation rules for under 18s?
Thank you. I'm pleased that somebody has asked a question related to COVID, because I had considered putting it in my speech. And I know that we are still in a pandemic, and Senator Valois steered us so well, and she steered children and schools so expertly through the pandemic. And I know we are coming out the other side, but there may be emergency situations, there may be decisions that have to be taken, and I'm prepared to do that. And I think what I can do for members is explain the principles that I would use to make those decisions. So first of all, we should absolutely be putting children first, and by that I mean we should be looking holistically across economy, education, all of the different responsibilities that government has. And we should consider first, how can we maintain what we're providing for children at the levels that they need to thrive? So that's the first principle, is putting them first, thinking, right, how do we try and keep giving them what they need? So in terms of isolation, children do not need to be locked in their bedrooms. Children need education, and I was supportive of the health minister during the pandemic in following that advice from STAC to keep schools open as much as possible and as far as it was safe. And that's the second principle. So I would try to maintain what children need, but secondly, it has to be safe. And that's where the medical advice comes in. And that's something I really value. I'm used to assessing science and weighing up different pieces of research and evidence. That's something I'm very used to doing. And I think I'm very well placed to make decisions about what measures to put in place or take away around COVID, weighing up those principles that I've outlined.
Supplemental comment?
How would you convince your colleagues?
I would argue passionately for what children need. So I think what we haven't had during the pandemic is someone who is in there, and actually it's nobody's fault in a way, because nobody asked for this pandemic, but the groups that we've had making decisions have often not included parents of very young children. Now, I'm a parent of a young child, I'm a teacher, I have an understanding of child development. I would be in there, and I would be at every moment making sure that children's needs are thought about and that children are not forgotten. And I'm not afraid to argue passionately about that. It's something which it's just in my blood. It's something, and I'm absolutely I'm so keen to go and do that. I would love the opportunity to go and do that.
Deputy Masson.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that this portfolio is quite a wide remit, and therefore the candidate won't be able to touch on everything in her opening speech. But I was disappointed that she didn't talk about the retraining strategy, and I wonder whether she is prepared to commit to carry on with this work, and what is her vision in this area, as the skills remit really hasn't been touched on.
Thank you. Yes, I do think when I talked about my vision of children being born to a family and having the same opportunities, I'm very aware that children grow up to be adults and they contribute to our society. That's one of the reasons why I am so passionate about the Rights Respecting Schools programme, because that teaches children that they have responsibilities to be decent citizens. And I think whilst we do need to provide a curriculum that is creative and helps children to be divergent thinkers and problem solvers, we need to balance that with actually giving them training and helping them to acquire the skills that they will need to actually get a job in the real world. Because as much as we, I mean, the cost of living in Jersey is such that, yeah, we need to equip our children to be competitive. And we also need to think about what the island needs. Now, I think during my first election and the last election, there was a lot of talk about diversifying our economy. And I think that we need to really get serious about that. And it's not just about skills at the latter end. I think sometimes we think skills is about teenagers and about secondary school. It is, obviously, and we need to have those specific courses for children. But it's the soft skills as well. So I think that the ethos and the hidden curriculum of schools is just as important as the actual curriculum. So we need to make sure that every child is getting that good foundation and that grounding in how to talk to people, how to talk to anyone, how to communicate in lots of different ways, whether it's written or spoken. So that's what I would do. And I would support the work with skills. And I also think we need to have stronger links with the Economic Development Ministry, and that's something that I would encourage as well.
Supplemental, Deputy Messel?
Yes, sir. And I wonder if the candidate could elaborate on any changes or work she'd like to see with the Social Security Department in order to further the retraining strategy.
Yes, okay. I think in terms of social security, I mean, some of the issues that I've worked on with constituents has been people who've wanted to study and have had, that drive to go and study, but they perhaps don't fall into the traditional categories of, being an 18-year-old just about to go to university or being a mature student. So I think in terms of what social security could do to support, I think we need to be a bit more open-minded about different life stages that people might want to go and study, and if they can show that what they want to study is going to aid the community, I think that social security could have a role to play in supporting that.
Senator Ferguson?
Thank you, sir. What plans does the Deputy have for improving the teaching of coding and basic software engineering across all ages, from all age ranges from 8 to 18?
I thank the member for that question, and this is something I'm actually really excited about, and members may not know this about me, but I actually am really interested in information technology, and it was an area that I nearly went into before I was a teacher. And when I was a teacher, I was dedicated to making sure that IT was something that was taught in my reception and nursery classroom. And again, I think what we need to be doing is making sure that from the very earliest stages, and it's not about having children sat in front of screens, because actually, and I know that the Senator knows this, coding doesn't necessarily have to involve a screen. So I had something called, I think it's called a Bee-Bot, which is a little robot in my classroom that the children could interact with and learn the basics of coding from when they were 4 years old. So I would definitely support that. And I think, especially after the last year that we've had, whether we like it or not, we are living in a digital world. And the world is going to be even more digital by the time our children grow up and have to function within it. So I'm fully supportive of that.
There may be one moment for a supplemental question, Senator.
No, thank you.
Maybe a quick question, Deputy IA. It'll have to be quick, I'm afraid.
Yes. Does the candidate believe that single-sex schools should still have a place in our education system? Thank you.
That's an interesting one, which I haven't actually thought about. And I think what I would have to do first is ask the children what they think. That would be my first port of call for any kind of new ideas like that. I would go and consult with the children at those schools and at other schools in mixed-sex schools to see what the children and of course the teachers thought about that.
Well, that's exactly on the money, Deputy. Very well. That concludes the period of questions for the third candidate. Could I ask that Deputy Wickenden and Deputy Ward return to the Assembly? Very well, if everyone's plugged in and live, then shortly the greffier will add a vote into the chat channel, so members can choose who they wish to appoint. There will be obviously 3 options, and members will vote for one of those options. And as members will know, a candidate requires 1/2 or more than 1/2 of the votes cast to be elected. If no candidate achieves that, the candidate with the lowest vote will the lowest count will fall away, and then the voting will open for the remaining 2. But at the moment, there are 3 potential choices, and I ask the greffier to open the voting and members to vote.
So I just got to rejoin the meeting because it's logged me out.
We'll hold on until you're there, Deputy, although I think
It would be nice to be able to vote. Thanks.
I need his extra vote.
Right. We won't close the voting until at least you're logged on. There's a request from Senator Moore to vote in the chat. I won't allow votes in the chat immediately, but until members have had a good try at using the link, failing which, of course, we will record votes in the chat. There are 2 who have indicated they can't vote through the link at the current time. We'll give it just a moment or 2 more, I think. Request from Deputy Labby. Yes, the vote is up. It's in the chat. If you can't see it, then I can only assume, Deputy, there's a problem with your connection or you're in the wrong chat.
So I'm in the right chat. I think it's that I need to reboot the computer. I've had this before. So can I vote in the chat?
Yes, you can vote in the chat. Very well. Thank you. If members have now sought to vote, but have not been able to have their vote recorded in the link, then I will open voting in the chat as well. So if anyone would wish to indicate which of the 3 candidates, it may take me a while to do this manually. And wait until I put a thumbs up sign on your entrance so that you know. I've recorded 2 votes in the chat so far. Well, the Conatab St Saviour hasn't. Conatab, you can, if you wish to, record your vote in the link.
Can I ask if you've recorded my vote, sir?
Yes, I have, Deputy.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, in which case, ask the greffier to, if no further member wishes to record their vote in the chat, ask the greffier to close the voting.
It won't even let me vote in the chat, so I'm obviously in the wrong department altogether.
God,
Right.
what's so hard to get here early? Sorry.
Well, if we can recognise your voice, I'm quite content as you're in such technical difficulty. If you wish to record your vote verbally or by voice,
Yes,
you may.
thank you, sir. I'd like to vote for Deputy Wickenden, please.
Yes, in fact, that's come up on the link.
Thank you so much, sir.
And we have here recorded as follows. Deputy Wickenden has recorded 20 votes in the link, Deputy Ward 16 and Deputy Doublé 7. I have a further 2 votes for Deputy Wickenden in the chat and 1 for each of Deputy Ward and Deputy Doublé. That, I think, means that no candidate has achieved over half of the votes. Greffier, is that? So we go to a second round. Yes, so in which case no candidates achieved more than half of the votes, and accordingly we, I'm afraid, Deputy Doublé, you drop out of the race, and we will place a further link in the chat and open the voting again.
I'm afraid it's just crashed on me, so.
That may take a little while.
So could I ask for the names to be read out of those who have voted and which way?
This is not recording to a form proposition. The final votes will be recorded, I think, in the at the final voting stage. But it has appeared in the chat if you wish it for your own information, Deputy Taddy. Do we have?
Yeah.
There's no point in recording any votes at the moment until the Greffiers put a link up. Very well, the link is now posted in the chat. I ask the Greffier to open the voting and members to cast their votes, and I can now agree to record votes in the chat if people cannot use the link. Leave it just a moment or two longer. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, I ask the Greffier to close the voting. The votes recorded is Deputy Ward 21 votes, Deputy Wickenden 22 votes in the link, a further 2 votes for each of those candidates in the chat. Accordingly, the final tally by my calculation is 23 votes for Deputy Ward and 24 votes for Deputy Wickenden, and Deputy Wickenden is accordingly elected by the Assembly as Minister.
So may I just say congratulations, it was a welcome success.
Congratulations to the new minister.
Is it appropriate now we see which way everyone
Yes,
voted in
yes.
the
I mean,
last vote?
that's a matter of
you,
public
sir.
record. It's an open vote.
Sorry. So you wanting, sorry, you wanting the previous vote and this vote read out, or just this last vote?
I think it is important to have both votes read out. We can see.
Well,
who-
if you would you read out, please, the first round voting, Greffier?
In the first round, those voting for Deputy Wickenden were Senator Lafondre, the Connétable of Grouville, the Connétable of St Helier, Deputy Wickenden, Deputy Pinnell, Deputy Ash, Senator Gorst, the Deputy of St Juan, Deputy Guida, Deputy of Grouville, the Constable of St Juan, the Deputy of St Peter, the Connétable of Trinity, Deputy Martin, Deputy Truscott, Deputy Lewis, the Connétable of St Peter, Deputy of Trinity, and Deputy Masson and Senator Farnham. Those voting for Deputy Ward were Senator Mezek, Deputy Alves, the Connétable of St John, the Connétable of St Brelard, the Deputy of St Martin, Deputy Ayer, the Connétable of St Martin, Deputy Lehegara, Senator Pallett, the Deputy of St John, Deputy Southern, Deputy Ward, Deputy Pamplin, the Deputy of St Mary, Deputy Tadier, Deputy Higgins, and those voting for Deputy Doublé in the link were Senator Valois, Deputy Morel, Deputy Doublé, Deputy Gardner, the Connétable of St Lawrence, Deputy Young, and Senator Ferguson. Apologies, it is quite difficult to read it. In the second round, those voting for Deputy Ward were the Deputy of St Martin, Deputy Ayer, Senator Valois, Senator Mezek, Deputy Tadier, Deputy Ward, Deputy Doublé, Senator Pallett, the Connétable of St Brelard, the Connétable of St Martin, the Deputy of St John, Deputy Southern, Deputy Alves, the Connétable of St John, Deputy Lehegara, Deputy Higgins, the Deputy of St Mary, Deputy Gardner, Senator Ferguson, Deputy Pamplin, and Deputy Morel. And those voting for Deputy Wickenden were the Connétable of Grouville, Deputy Wickenden, Deputy Pinnell, Deputy Truscott, Senator Gorst, Deputy Guida, the Conotab of St Lawrence, the Conotab of Trinity, the Deputy Martin, the Conotab of St Juan, Deputy Lewis, Senator Lafondre, the Conotab of St Lawrence, Senator Farnham, Deputy Ash, the Deputy of Grouville, the Conotab of St Peter, the Deputy of St Juan, Deputy of Trinity, Deputy of St Peter, Deputy Masson.
Very well. We now move on to the selection of a Minister for Home Affairs. The Assembly is due to appoint such a minister. Members have received notice of the Chief Minister's nomination. Chief Minister, would you like to make that nomination?
Yes, thank you, sir. And as I wrote to members on Sunday, I'm pleased but also very saddened to propose Deputy Gregory Guida to the position of Minister for Home Affairs. I do just want to take the opportunity, sir, to pay tribute, like many other members have done so far, and as I've done previously, to the late Conotable St Clement, who served so ably as Minister for Home Affairs. He has left an enormous legacy and was hugely respected not only by his immediate colleagues, but also across government and this and past assemblies. And I know that he and Deputy Guida work very closely as Minister and Assistant Minister. I have full confidence that Deputy Guida will build on the work that they've achieved together, and I commend him to this Assembly, sir. Thank you.
Is that nomination seconded? Are there any other nominations? Very well. If there are no other nominations, then Deputy Guida, you have 10 minutes to speak to the Assembly, and there will be a period of 20 minutes for questions following.
Thank you, sir. First, it should be said that I would have done anything not to find myself in this situation today. I hoped and I prayed that somehow my friend and mentor, Len Norman, would overcome his very serious condition. Our last conversation was about how he had decided to fight his illness, knowing all too well how hard and debilitating the potential cure would be. Unfortunately, nature followed its course, and here we are today, trying to fill some very large shoes. Len loved this position, and he was uniquely suited to it. It is sad, actually, that he found this role so late in his career. Fortunately, he was also happy to share it, and we have been working very closely in the past 3 years. We worked together on the modernization of the services, we discussed deportations, we argued new legislation, and we decided policy together. For the sake of continuity, the Chief Minister suggested I might take up this ministerial position, and I do feel that, with the leave of the Assembly, I am ready to do so. I am ready to champion the services, the States of Jersey Police, the Jersey Fire and Rescue Service, Her Majesty's Prison at Lamoille, the Ambulance Service, the Jersey Field Squadron, the Superintendent Registrar, and I will not forget the Jersey Customs and Immigration Service, who are doing so much in this difficult Brexit transition. Len Norman also promised that he would be critical, that he would challenge, that we would get the best value out of the services. In this last year of our term, most of these challenges have come to fruition, and I am ready to ensure that they result in improvements, that the reorganizations, the budget changes, sometimes the increases in personnel, do make for more efficient services, but that the service to the public is not only undamaged, but actually enhanced. The desire of the public to be safe has not changed since 3 years ago. The desire to be protected from crime, rescued from fires or road accidents, and taken to the hospital in time is unabated. And we are doing this better than ever. But we also have new challenges. The ambulance service will have to adapt to the new care model. The fire and rescue service
will need to draft and comply with very complex new regulations in the wake of the Grenfell fire. Customs and immigration still have many Brexit changes to implement. Our superintendent registrar is now picking up the registry of several parishes, and her job is changing significantly. Finally, among other preoccupations, the state's police will have to improve its financial crime unit to help Jersey maintain its image of a safe and properly regulated financial center. All of this, of course, happening in the shadow of the consequences of COVID. I am ready to help them do that. I am doing it now, and I am ready to do it for one more year, so that all those important projects that Len Norman started are concluded during this term. The domestic abuse law, the prejudice law, the settlement of our European residents, the development of criminal justice, the overhaul of youth justice, the establishment of post-custodial supervision, the updating of marriage and civil partnerships, the restart of the drug and alcohol strategy, and many others. On a lighter note, I'm also happy to announce that the fireworks law is finally back on track and that I could bring it to this assembly, maybe even in time for the new year. I have mentioned before my belief in the wisdom of the assembly. Some subjects, like for example assisted dying, are just too vast for a single person to steer, and I already have plans to present a couple of very interesting propositions on principles to the assembly if they allow me. Finally, we shouldn't forget the capital projects of this ministry, which I have accompanied so far and would really love to get started. The first-class police shooting range, a sexual assault referral center, which we are developing as a true multi-service victim support center, and a Barner house. And of course, we will advance the construction of the Len Norman Joint Fire and Ambulance Station. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. There is now then a period of 20 minutes under which questions can be asked. Does anyone have any questions for the Deputy? Yes.
So
yes, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I congratulate the Deputy on his appointment. Can I ask the Deputy, some time ago in a debate, he stood in this assembly and said that he wasn't here to be a politician, he was here to manage. How does he reconcile that belief with what is a wholly political role as minister? Thank you, sir.
This is an extremely interesting question because it is absolutely true. The Home Affairs Ministry differs from others in the sense that it manages services that pretty much run themselves. And the vast majority of the work in it is about steering legislation. However, I am not alone in that. And what what legislation we bring to the Assembly, we consult on. So it is not something that is left to the minister to do. Also, one of the things that the minister does have to do is to make sure that the services work correctly. And all the services have withstood a vast overhaul in the last few years. And it is very, very important to make sure that the target operating model is not damaging any of them. So there's an intense work of management and supervision to make sure that we're not damaging any of the services and they work as efficiently as possible.
Supplementary, yes.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to push a little on the political oversight. So we're about to debate today the Immigration Acts and Consolidation Extension Jersey Law in Council. One of the things it does not include is the creation of a hostile environment to immigrants. We've taken that part out of the law, but it does give the Home Affairs Minister more responsibility for bringing laws. Can the Minister-elect declare that he will not be promoting a hostile environment as the type that exists in the UK? Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. I was extremely lucky in my position, my previous position, that we tended to agree with almost everything with Constable Norman. And it was his decision to absolutely not have the hostile environment system in Jersey. And I agreed 100% to it. So I will follow that without question.
Well, Deputy Aye.
Thank you, sir. Does the minister accept that Ridgeboyle School should be extended onto the fire station? And if so, where does he believe the fire and ambulance station should be located? Thank you, sir.
Actually, I disagree. We checked 14 different locations throughout the island to put the new fire station in. Our favorite would have been a completely clean site where we could have designed the best possible fire and ambulance joint station. We were actually inventing things, we were creating new things. It was quite exciting. Unfortunately, all the studies that we did showed that the response time increased dramatically the further we got away from the center of town. Basically, most of the incidents happen in town, and the fire and ambulance station need to be in town. The only site in town that satisfies that, unfortunately, is Rouge Bouillon. And since I'm actually involved in planning as well, I know well that it would be pretty much impossible to try to persuade new neighbors of a fire and ambulance station to accept the nuisance of such a station next to their homes. So even if there were potential sites for it, it would be extremely, extremely difficult to move it. Having seen all this, we finalized our project on Rouge Bouillon, but dutifully, we are waiting for SIPES, for the Education Ministry, to finish their evaluation of their own needs for sites and let the government decide who will get Rouge Bouillon. I will be supporting the joint fire and ambulance station quite strongly on this site.
Supplementary, Deputy?
No, nothing further.
Very much. Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. Would the new minister commit to maintaining the commitment of the previous minister to including sex and gender as protected characteristics in the new hate crime legislation, please?
I am very happy to say yes, absolutely. It would have been my first decision at the time. I won't go into the detail, but let's say that Constable Norman and myself were quite inclined to include sex as a discriminating characteristic from the start. And it just took a little while to persuade everybody else.
Supplemental, Deputy? No? Conatapis and Brillard.
Thank you, sir. Would the Deputy confirm his support of the Office of Parish Registrar and ensure their inclusion in any system changes being proposed?
That's an interesting one because I'm right in the middle of it. The previous, well, if members know the story, the central registrar, the superintendent registrar, took up the functions of the registry during the COVID crisis when there was no access to the parishes. When these functions were meant to be returned to the parishes, some parishes decided or were unable to take them back. And to allow that, we needed to change the law. The first draft of the law allowed for a single choice. The parish would decide whether or not they would have their registrar back or whether they would let the superintendent registrar carry the role. And after discussion with the parishes, after a very short discussion with the parishes, I saw that this was too limited. And I actually asked that I change the drafting instructions so that the parishes could pick up the role whenever they wanted again. So the difference now is that parishes that for any reason cannot carry the role will give it to the superintendent registrar. But if in the years to come they decide to have a registrar again, it will be possible. It will be included in the law.
Supplementary, please. Sir.
Yes, please, Constable.
Would he agree that that adequate training for them will be facilitated as necessary?
Absolutely, that's already the case, and it is essential. The role has become more and more professional. It is less tolerant of mistakes, and training is an extremely important part of it.
Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. Firstly, I would like to wish the Deputy well in his new role. Does the Minister intend to continue the work of the previous Minister in pursuing the decriminalisation of drugs?
That's a very interesting one. We had a meeting with officers and minister from health, the minister and myself, and the idea was to discuss the notion of decriminalizing drugs in Jersey. And we were absolutely astonished to find that nobody at the table actually was fundamentally against it. We found out that we had all sorts of technical issues, things that needed to be sorted, but none of us actually was fundamentally against it. So it is definitely something that we look forward to.
Supplemental?
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you much. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. I give my congratulations to the Minister. Could I ask the Minister whether he thinks there is scope for review of the working of the Professional Standards Department and the Jersey Police Complaints Authority to make sure that islanders are getting the very best of investigations and accountability for the police?
Well, the deputy will know that we're actually working on the Jersey Police Complaint Authority law and are going to change a few things. One of the things that I understand will change is that the authority will have the right to initiate inquiries. So they will be more active in asking questions and gathering data. And certainly we want that body, which is a fantastic body. I mean, to think that those people do this as volunteers is quite extraordinary. And we want them to be as powerful and as useful as possible.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes, Deputy.
Yes, does the Minister think there is a case for the Police Complaints Authority to use more external investigations rather than relying on the Professional Services Department?
I would say that yes, in some cases, it would make complete sense.
Very well. Senator Mezek.
Thanks, sir, and congratulations to the new Minister. Does he believe that enough is being done to tackle behaviour of some individuals who use social media platforms to threaten people with violence?
This is a very, very interesting question. I'm sure that everybody in this assembly would be happy to see something done about it. Technically, the laws exist already that would allow us to consider this as an offence and to punish it. The difficulty, of course, is in identifying the perpetrators and building a case against them. It is something that we have looked at and that the police is not at this stage ready to work on, except in extreme cases. But it is certainly something I would like to see developed.
Supplemental, Senator?
Does the Minister not think that were more prosecutions to be brought against people, it would be a good demonstration that this sort of behaviour, which would never be accepted in person, is just as unacceptable when it takes place online, and that by not pursuing prosecutions, it essentially leaves these people unaccountable and continue to able to terrorise people in their lives?
I couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, a prosecution is a very, very technical process, and it is just extremely difficult to do with online material. But I couldn't agree more.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I was wondering whether the first of all, congratulations to my fellow Deputy of St. Lawrence. I'm delighted that he's been elected as Home Affairs Minister. But does the Minister agree with the statement that if you treat children like criminals, they will grow up to act in a criminal manner? Thank you, sir.
I'm happy to see that the caliber of questions is quite good this morning. It's a very, very important question. We do have a problem with asocial behavior and a small number of young people at the limit of being children, 16 and 17-year-old, who are I mean, it is quite extraordinary. About 20% of the offences are carried out by 10 people, just 10 of them. And of course, it takes an enormous amount of police resources, but also their control is done in association with the social services and all other agencies of SIPES. So we're all aware of how this should be dealt with. But I think the biggest problem is that at that stage, it's probably too late to do anything. And this is probably just an example on how we have to act earlier to make sure that children in difficult families do not grow up like that.
Deputy Royal Supplementary.
Yes, please, sir. Personally, I feel it's never too late to do something. But does the Minister believe that some of the actions of the police in their apparently precautionary treatment of young people, particularly in their teens and late teens, may be alienating those people from the police and driving them towards, at the minimum, antisocial behaviour, if not criminal behaviour?
I do agree that it is quite possible. However, remember that the police must protect the public in general, all of the public. And in these particular cases, it is about protecting the rest of the island from a few individuals. And if physical force needs to be used, it has to be used. There is no other way of protecting the rest of the public.
Senator Valois.
Yes, thank you, sir. I'd like to join in the congratulations to the Deputy taking on the Home Affairs Ministry. My question lies within the emphasis and priority that the Deputy will give to bringing forward the domestic abuse legislation and a timeline in which we would expect to see that.
The domestic abuse legislation has been our foremost priority ever since Constable Norman and I came into this role. It is complex, long, but I hope to have it lodged and one hopes passed before the end of the year.
Supplemental, Senator?
No, thank you, sir.
Same question, Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. Given that this government has removed funding for the Building a Safer Society strategy, how will the Minister approach the current spike in youth crime?
Personally, I would like to restore that funding. I think BAS was a very, very good system, and I would like to see it back. I will do my best to make it happen.
Supplemental, Senator? Yes.
Yes, sir. Could the Minister outline or describe some of the initiatives that he would like to see a renewed BAS strategy provide in order to give useful distractions to young people?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Could you repeat that, please, Senator? I'm not sure it came across as clearly as it might.
Apologies. I was simply asking whether the Minister could outline some ideas he might have for a renewed BAS strategy, particularly with regards to providing services for children and young people.
No, I'm sorry, I do not have such a strategy. I hope to build one with those services. So I'd like to get them back to the table and see how we can then make them work together and build up a new strategy.
Well, does any other member have a question for Deputy Guida? Deputy Aye, second question.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister believe that more resources will be required for the Customs Service as a result of reducing the GST de minimis level charge on imported goods, and how will this be funded? Thank you, sir.
I think we're doing well, actually, with the current resources. And there is one issue which will need to be sorted, is that, of course, stopping all those packages at the border means that somewhere we do need more warehousing space. So that's one issue that we're working on right now. The service itself has been able to manage with the increased workload without too much problem. It will be worse when we reduce again the de minimis if this assembly decides to do so.
Supplementary, Deputy Aye?
Nothing further, sir.
Deputy Morell, second question.
Thank you, sir. And apologies if I missed this in the speech. I just wanted to ask, will the minister be continuing as assistant minister in environment and any other assistant minister positions he may have?
Yes, absolutely. There's a narrow line of interest where I'm actually being quite useful in the environment ministry. So I will keep that. It is quite possible that I will have to let go of other responsibilities to devote more time to home affairs.
So may I ask the minister to elaborate on other responsibilities, sir, and also to explain how he expects to, or how he intends to be a fully committed home affairs minister and maintain the assistant ministership in another department?
Well, I have been doing so for the last 2 months, and I've also been a member of about 9 boards, panels, and committees at the same time. So I have a fairly good grasp of my capacity or workload capacity. Well, I will not mention the fact that I'm also managing 5 companies at the same time. So yes, I do have a good grasp of my capacity and how to manage it. One of the joys of becoming a minister is that things start getting organized around you rather than the contrary. So it has been difficult while Len was away, because as assistant minister, meetings would be designed around me and would clash and superpose with other meetings. Now that they will be designed around me, they will be fit in my agenda where there is space. So actually, that will make my job easier. But I do agree that I will have to let go of some of the other responsibilities.
Might be time for an extremely quick question from Deputy Higgins. It would have to be just a few seconds.
Thank you, sir. Will the minister try and deal with the frustrations of the public trying to contact customs by telephone? Not everyone has access to computers, and a telephone line is essential. Thank you.
I agree. I was not aware of the issue, but I definitely agree, especially in those times where Brexit has completely changed the way we import goods. The de minimis has multiplied the
I'm sorry,
the issue. So yes, I will look into it.
Bring the time available to a close. There were no other nominations. The speech and period of questions have been completed. Therefore, I confirm that Deputy Guida has been appointed as Minister for Home Affairs. Just referring back to the election that took place before that, some members were concerned that their names had not been read out. That was because they had voted in the link rather than in the chat rather than in the link. The position was, as to the first round, the Connétable St Saviour and Deputy Labby voted for Deputy Wickenden. Connétable St Mary voted for Deputy Ward, and Senator Moore voted for Deputy Doublé. And in the second round, the Connétable St Saviour and Deputy Labby voted for Deputy Wickenden, and the Connétable St Mary and Senator Moore voted for Deputy Ward. That brings the record up, I think, up to date. Very well. We now move on with business of the Assembly. There are no matters under G and H. A number of answers have been tabled to written questions, so we now come to oral questions. The first question is Deputy Morell will put to the Minister for Home Affairs. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. And yes, I imagine the Minister is feeling very comfortable with questions at the moment, so I'll continue that. With the deadline of 30th of June 2021 imminent, will the Minister advise how many islanders it is estimated are yet to apply for EU settled status, and whether or not 28-day enforcement notices will be issued against any who have not?
So, over 17,000 applications have been made to the Jersey EU settlement scheme. There is no precise data available due to the historic free movement of EU nationals to determine how many people are yet to apply to the scheme. Estimates 3 years ago indicate there may be up to 20,000 EU nationals in Jersey. I'll divert from my written speech to add that at the last census, we counted 13,000 European nationals that had been born outside of Jersey and that could necessitate to the settled status. Only 13,000 added to that 1,300 Irish EU nationals who, of course, do not need the settled status. So the 20,000 EU national estimate that we've been using from the start is an absolute worst case scenario. And I would say that after having pushed the scheme for more than 2 years, we are very, very likely to have reached pretty much all of the EU citizens in the island. After the 30th of June, 28-day notices will be issued to those individuals who are encountered by justice officers and can provide some evidence that they are eligible to the settled scheme. Late applications will be considered against reasonable grounds for missing the deadline. Those who fail to subsequently make application to the scheme or whose application are refused will be liable to removal.
Well, supplemental, Deputy Imran?
Yes, please, sir. Sir, I was briefly at the office where applications are processed, and there was one gentleman who didn't speak superb English who was being turned away because he hadn't gone onto the website first, and he obviously was late. He was just sent away with the words, "Go and look at the website." Can the Minister be sure that those people who are late in the day applying, possibly because their level of English is not great, are being treated in a manner which is aware of the fact they may find it difficult to access websites and use websites? And would he also say whether or not, as with the previous minister, they will take a very understanding approach to such late or even beyond the deadline application?
Absolutely. I'm quite saddened to hear about that incident. From the beginning, we accepted that many of the applicants might not be able to use the internet or speak English very well. And we were not only ready to go and look for them, but also assist them as much as we could. And I will make sure that this follows on. And of course, the other thing is that we do not intend to be harsh or difficult with this. Those people are our guests, and we want to make sure that they are safe in Jersey.
Well, Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. The Minister will be aware that I had a constituency case recently of somebody who had attempted to engage with the settled status scheme and had come across some sort of technical problem that had left her completely unaware of whether her application had actually been accepted. The Minister was very helpful and helped resolve that particular case, but is he concerned that there could be more people out there who have attempted to engage with the system, haven't had it accepted for technical problems, but aren't aware that it hasn't been accepted? And is he able to speak to those running this system to go through that and ensure that everybody gets contacted if they've attempted an application that hasn't for whatever reason worked through the system?
Absolutely. At this stage, we are running through the backlog and processing about 500 applications a week. So the officers are really, really busy processing the easy applications, the ones that are that have all the documentation with them. After that, we are not going to close the system. We are going to make sure that we catch everybody that went through the hoops and that had a problem. So we're definitely going to continue working after we've done all the easy ones.
Supplementary question?
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary. I'm sorry. Could I just remind members, I know we're a little bit out of the sway, but people have to notify before I call a final supplementary. I'll let it go past at this point. Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. Can the deputy advise the public what they should do if they haven't heard within a certain amount of time? I've also been experiencing what the Senator Mezek has said, and some people are replying to emails and not having any responses back for confirmation that they've been received. So if the minister could provide some guidance as to what people should do in that situation. Thank you, sir.
Well, the most important thing is that if you qualify and you are late, you still qualify. We're not going to do anything to somebody who's lived 10 years in the island and just had a paperwork or an email issue. So qualified remains qualified. If you're traveling and you're worried that not being officially on the settled status list could be a problem, then yes, you should talk to the immigration department. And again, I will make sure that this is possible and that phone calls are answered.
Supplementary question, Deputy Alves?
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Morrell.
Thank you, sir. The minister mentioned that there would be removals after the 28-day period. Would the minister please advise when he believes these may start and what funding has been set aside for those removals?
Well, with luck, there shouldn't be any. That is not the goal of the process. When we get to that point, and that is quite a bit in the future, we will make sure that it is possible to do so. But what we really want to is persuade people that if they do qualify, they need to register as soon as possible.
I beg your pardon.
Thank you, sir.
Funding, sir, I asked about.
I haven't seen the budget for this, so I do not know what situation it is in, but it is a known issue. We're probably ready for it.
Well, we come to question 2. The Deputy Tallier will ask the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Tallier.
Thank you. Further to the answer to oral question 119/2020, will the Minister advise what progress, if any, has been made to date to the provision of a on-island radiotherapy for cancer patients? Is it still the preferred option of government to have an on-island provision, and if so, when will it be delivered?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Whenever HCS has looked at this issue, we have recognised that the driver for the case was patient experience, as going off island for treatment is stressful for our patients and their families. And that remains the driver and is why we are reviewing the provision opportunities. The complexity arises because the overall volume of patients needing radiotherapy, which is about 2 to 4 per week at present, does not support the viability of a provision on island, both from a clinical or a healthcare economics perspective. The relationship between volumes and outcomes for complex health conditions is well documented, and for many conditions, the professional bodies are making minimum numbers a requirement for a service or staff to be accredited or for services to be commissioned. A community of 108,000 in the UK is unlikely to have its own radiotherapy service. Patient safety and outcomes are rightly our first priority, and we must ensure that our decision is evidence-based and safe. Nonetheless, we are continuing investigating what it is possible to do on island, and we have a working group exploring the feasibility of a clinical and economic case for on-island provision. The first work stream is updating the capacity and demand modelling, and I will be in a position to report to members on progress and next steps, certainly by the end of the summer. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary question, Deputy.
Thank you. I thank the Minister for his update and note that there will be an update hopefully by the end of the summer, so that is welcome. I note that there seem to be slightly more nuanced answers given to those of last year, where he was very much focusing on the convenience to patients rather than necessarily the fact that the economic case added up. But would he give an assurance that If this is to happen, and it's very much, it needs to be, I think, a political decision as well as just a purely economic one, that it should happen sooner rather than later, and that it shouldn't happen. We shouldn't be waiting until the new hospital is built and opens before this new on-island provision could be provided, if that's the preferred route.
Sir, this does not need to wait for a new hospital to be built if it is determined that we can safely offer this service in Jersey. It is not just an economic case, it is also a clinical case, because our volumes are low that do not normally justify the employment of a specialist team on island. They would not have the necessary throughput of patients to maintain their required clinical accreditation, and therefore we need to know that any service we offer is safe and that our patients receive the best care. So it is trying to square the circle, because there is that tension between the safety aspects, but recognizing the wish for islanders to have their treatment locally, which we want to deliver if we can possibly do so. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Higgins.
Yes, thank you, sir. Is the Minister going to be able to achieve his timescale for coming back to members? Because currently there are 9 vacancies in the radiology department, and there are management problems there, which I think are affecting existing delivery, let alone future delivery.
Well, yes, sir, not every member of the department will be on the working group that we have established, and the working group is established and is considering these issues.
Supplementary, sir. There are management problems in this area. Can he tell us which managers are involved in this exercise?
So we will have senior members of our oncology team, including the lead consultant and the lead nurse in that area, and our director of general manager of hospital services, as well as the chief nurse and medical director also having an input.
Well, I have the Connaught Arbor St Saviour, Deputy Ward, Deputy St Peter, then final supplementary, not taking any further ones on that. Connaught Arbor of St Saviour.
Sir, I would just like to know if the people who are sleeping rough have been given the vaccination for the virus.
I'm sorry, that's not in accordance with the terms of the question. The question is specifically about on-island radiotherapy.
Yes.
That's out of order.
Okay, thank
Deputy
you,
Ward.
sir.
Not at all, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, has consideration been given to joint working with Guernsey? So given that it's a much easier journey, and it may mean that certain people who are suffering will not have to take that journey all the way to the UK. What consideration has been given to that?
So that has been considered, and we do have links with Guernsey, and it will continue to be considered, but we need to recognise that from a Guernsey point of view, both Southampton and Jersey are off island, and Jersey might not be the automatic choice for patients in Guernsey or the Guernsey Health Service. If we are to offer it to Guernsey, we would need to ensure that the Jersey offer is better or more attractive, which might mean a cost subsidy. But all of that is in the mix and will be considered. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Ward.
So just to ask about the timescale for that mix that this is all in. Is there a timescale for any announcement on change and provision of this facility? Thank you, sir.
It's still too early, I feel, sir, to say, to give a time as to when any change might happen. As I've said, I will report back to States members as soon as I can.
Deputy St Peter.
Yeah, thank you, sir. My question was very much in line with Deputy Ward on cooperating with Guernsey. The benefit of Jersey to Guernsey, as opposed to Southampton, is Guernsey people could come here on a day trip which I think getting home at night, from my understanding, is one of the key things for recovery when you're going through such a stressful situation. Can I just ask the Minister if he's considered looking at the service in that light, as opposed to just a straight comparison between Southampton and Jersey for Guernsey Islanders? Thank you.
So I thank the Deputy, sir. So I'll take that observation away. Of course, we'll need to ensure that we have good transport links with Guernsey so that we can receive patients early in the morning and would get them home in time in late afternoon. But we will take that into account. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary question, Deputy?
No, thank you, sir.
Very well. Final supplementary, Deputy Taddy.
Thanks, sir. It was in speaking with patients and indeed some professionals that I was told that there is also an economic cost to Jersey in terms of the loss of labour, whereas a lot of people find it useful to still be able to work where they can during their weeks of treatment, and they can't do that if they're off island. So will the Minister make sure that all of these factors are taken into account, and that would he actually launch a part of a public consultation for all people who've undergone radiotherapy and perhaps chemotherapy in the UK, or radiotherapy in the UK, and their families, to be able to give direct feedback to whatever this stakeholder group that the Minister is talking about, so that we can have a fully informed consultation about what's going on?
Thank you, sir. I note those points, which are valid and interesting. I've written them down, and I'll ensure that we try and take account of the economic costs that the Deputy has mentioned, and try and get that feedback from patients who've recently travelled to Southampton for treatment. Thank you, sir.
Well, we come to question 3 that Senator Moore will ask the Minister for Social Security. Senator.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether she was consulted prior to the Political Oversight Group's request to approve the deferral of £1.5 million for the Discrimination Law Safeguarding Project, as identified in the report R105/2021 regarding transfers between heads of expenditure?
Yes, Senator, I was consulted.
And could the Minister then describe the impact that this deferral will have on members of the community?
We were told on the 1st of April that the money could be transferred because the work couldn't be done, mainly due to COVID, and it would not affect ongoing work. And I've also been told that the work will carry on when it can happen. The rest of the disability strategy is gaining a lot of pace. We have dedicated officers, and I'm very proud of the work that's being done. Thank you.
Senator Valwa.
Yes, thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister just to clarify, in terms of that money being moved and it being deferred to 2022, does that mean that there's a pause in the project, or that the funding was in excess for the year of 2021?
The money was in excess. The money couldn't be spent in 2021, again, due to COVID. We were all assured that the projects being moved across from the capital would not be abandoned, and they would carry on as and when the work could safely be done. Thank you.
Supplemental, Senator Valwa.
Yes, please, sir. Can I just clarify again with the Minister, in terms of the budget that was provided in the government plan was agreed during COVID last year. Is it because of what's happened with COVID this year that the reason for the not needing that funding, or was the estimation for the project higher than what it should have been?
I wouldn't say the estimation was higher. As the Senator knows, she was in the rooms last year when we were talking about the government plan, probably through the summer, hoping there would be no COVID again. We all know what happened there. And the money, as I said, just couldn't be spent. It will happen, and I can assure the Senator of that. Thank you.
Final supplementary, Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister content with the availability of staff in this area?
I'm not sure what the Senator is referring to. This is the first government that's got any money for the disabled strategy, and we now have got a full complement of staff delivering that strategy, inclusion officers and everything else. And as I say, it's really going great guns. The actual implementation under the discrimination safeguarding law sits with property holdings. And again, I would imagine that work would go out to local construction. Is there ever enough local construction? That is the question. Thank you.
Coming now to question 4, the Deputy IA will ask the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide a full explanation of the reasons for the deferral of the Vehicle Testing Centre project and the La Collette Waste Site Development project, as outlined in the report R105/2021 regarding transfers between heads of expenditure? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Vehicle Testing Centre project is dependent on the completion of the options appraisal study. The options appraisal study was delayed due to the pandemic and is as yet unfinished. Subsequently, the Vehicle Testing Centre project has been delayed. The underspend in 2021 is being reprofiled across the 2022 to 2024. The La Collette Waste Site Development is a long-term project to construct new waste cells as required by the local construction industry. The strategy for managing inert waste is to first reduce, reuse, and recycle. Where this is not possible, and based on our knowledge and understanding of the construction industry, new waste cells are constructed. The Operations and Transport Directorate have reviewed the current demand for inert waste and identified an underspend in 2021, which is being reprofiled across 2022 to 24 to meet future demand. Thanks, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy IA.
Thank you, sir. What consultation did the Minister have, if any, with the political oversight group regarding the deferral? Thank you, sir.
Yes, it was discussed at political oversight group, and it was agreed. In fact, it was advantageous for myself and my team because of the delays incurred. Instead of the money going back to Treasury, in fact, it was just reallocated further down the line. So instead of having to put a case for that money, it's sort of pre-allocated. So it was all discussed in advance. Thanks, sir.
Well, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, is the deferral of this project, does it create any risk for islanders who want to drive abroad with the standards that we required following Brexit, that they may not be able to because their vehicles have not been tested and standardised in the way that's necessary?
Excellent question, sir. No. We have signed up to the Vienna Convention as the UK did. So the Vienna Convention is more than happy that we are now compliant in that everything is now in train. We have actually, we test public service vehicles, we test heavy goods vehicles. We've also started testing mini camps we test anyway, and taxis we test. Mini vans we're testing, people carriers, and 125 motorbikes. So everything is well in train. So they are actually satisfied. As the Deputy is well aware, there will need extra provision such as international driving license, etc., and possibly green card type insurance. But apart from that, we are fully compliant. Thanks, sir.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Yes, I think you can ask the Minister, is there a point where if a delay continues that there could be the risk of, as I mentioned earlier, cars not being able to travel abroad because they haven't been tested and verified? Is there a point in the timescale that you mentioned where we would need to be ensure that this facility is available? And if so, what is that point? Thank you, sir.
As I say, everything is already in train. We have started the testing program with many vehicles already. So the program is in train. We need bigger facilities to start testing all the cars. So I would estimate, excuse me, we would have, say, 3, maybe 3.5 years before it become a problem. So we're well within the guidelines at the moment.
Well, Conor St John.
Thank you, sir. What impact, if any, has the high level of vacancies in his department had on delaying the vehicle testing centre?
Nothing at the moment, sir. As I pointed out the other week, in the testing centre, there were 6 vacancies, and that does not cover the whole department, of which there's about 57 across the whole of infrastructure. But not at the moment, sir. Everything is working perfectly.
Dr. Bentel, comment on?
So in answer to a written question, the level of vacancies were much higher than stated by the Minister.
Is that
I haven't got that with me, sir.
Can you confirm the number, please, sir?
I will get that in writing to States members, sir, but I believe it's about 57, thereabouts at the moment.
Well, final supplementary, Deputy IO.
Thank you, sir. Did the Minister select these projects for deferral himself, or was he advised to choose them because of their high value? Thank you, sir.
I was advised by senior officers that this would be appropriate, as they were the ones that have been delayed by COVID. And as I mentioned previously, that actually works to our advantage as this money is now pre-allocated. So it doesn't affect us at all at the moment in that respect.
Well, we come to question 5 that the Connétable of St Peter will ask of the Chief Minister. Connétable.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise whether he was consulted prior to the Political Oversight Group's request to approve the deferral of £4.319 million as identified in the report R105/2021 regarding transfers between heads of expenditure in relation to projects entitled Electronic Document Management, Cyber, Court Digitisation, or Regulation Digital Assets?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, I did participate firstly in the Political Oversight Group meeting on the 18th of February, at which it was decided to request the Treasury Minister, following consultation by the relevant ministers, to defer 17.796 million of funding from existing capital programmes and reallocate this funding to our hospital project. Council ministers were consulted during meetings on the 1st of April and the 27th of April and agreed to the transfers, and I participated in both of those meetings. And obviously papers were shared with council ministers in advance of those meetings. I think it's worth just making the point so that obviously the hospital is an extremely critical part of our infrastructure. And it is really not acceptable to let the hospital, the existing hospital, deteriorate without having an alternative. Therefore, sir, the hospital project is critical, and what we're actually dealing with is slippage in or underspends in other or existing projects. It is a cash flow issue, sir, and essentially what we've done is looked at the efficient use, if you like, and management of our cash flow to address the consequences of the delays that occurred as a result of the debates in the Assembly towards the end of last year, which weren't obviously anticipated in the original programme, but it is not additional spend, sir. Thank you.
Supplemental, Connétable.
Thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister confirm that we are likely to see these funds requested again by the relevant departments in the next government plan?
So the mechanism we're still working through, sir, because obviously the government plan, the next government plan, is in the process of being produced. But what I will absolutely say, sir, is that this is a cash flow issue. It should not be regarded as an additional increase in expenditure, sir.
Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. At the time of the government plan 2 years ago, it was argued that the cyber project and monies allocated to it were of critical importance, and it was essential that this work was conducted in the quickest time available. Could the Chief Minister describe what has changed and why this project that was then deemed critical is no longer so important?
So actually, I think the simplest way is to refer the Senator back to the scrutiny hearing we had on Friday, where the Director General gave quite a detailed explanation as to the rationale behind it. But essentially, sir, delays did occur through COVID, and he was satisfied relative to the risks that the Senator is alluding to, having been prioritised and having been satisfied, sir.
Supplemental, Senator?
No, thank you.
Deputy Southern?
Thank you, sir. The electronic document management referred to there, does that apply to the communication between GPs and other workers in the community and the hospital? Because a delay there will seriously affect the Jersey care model, will it not?
So my understanding is that that's not the case, but I'll go back and double check that, sir. What I can say is that there has been a delay. The two areas that it's mainly relating to are the tax files, sir, which need to be in place before they move to the new office building in mid-2024, and what's referred to as the health files, which I don't think is the interaction between GPs and the health service, sir. I think it's the personal health files that are maintained in paper form, and they were in the basement of the General Hospital, sir, and it's about getting those essentially put into an electronic format. That needs to be done before the move to the new hospital in hopefully 2026. And despite the changes in the programme, sir, we remain confident that those deadlines will continue to be met, sir. So I do not believe, but I'm very happy to check, sir, that it's exactly the area that the deputy is referring to.
Well, supplementary. Deputy.
Thank you.
Connétable of St Lawrence, and then final supplementary. Connétable.
Yes, my question, I've indicated that I'd like to ask a question, but it's not in relation to this question.
Well, then it's not in accordance with standing orders, and it will have to wait to when the Chief Minister is answering questions more generally. Final supplementary question. Connétable St Peter.
No, thank you, sir.
Very much. We come now to question 6, probably the last question we take before the adjournment, if members agree, that Senator Mezek will ask the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture. Senator.
Thank you, sir. Following the announcement that grants will be provided for small and medium-sized businesses to allow them to invest in measures that will improve their productivity, what conditions, if any, has the Minister considered applying to these grants to ensure that the business's employees, including any paid below the living wage, will benefit from wage increases as a result of increasing productivity?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Alongside the main criteria, the assessment of applications contains additional considerations which identify and further endorse those projects that can support government commitments to the living wage and the Jersey performance framework outcomes on sustainable well-being, sir. The scheme guidelines are clear that priority for funding will be given to applications which can demonstrate both. Improving business productivity levels is one step towards making businesses more efficient, sir, and thus more profitable, which will support their ability to move towards paying higher wages. And this is certainly one of the key objectives of the scheme.
Supplementary, yes.
Thanks. So would the Minister be prepared to publish whatever information or guidance comes alongside these grant applications to demonstrate these criteria so we can see them for ourselves and ascertain for ourselves whether we think they're robust enough in their requirements to move towards the living wage?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The scheme guidelines are currently published on gov.je. Jersey Business are acting as the gateway, sir, and will advise and coach businesses through the scheme application process, sir. So I'm happy to provide any additional information that members might not think is adequate in the current published scheme guidelines, but I could also ask Jersey Business to publish more details on the actual application gateway.
Well, Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. Has the Minister taken into account the productivity gains that the Americans have been discovering in adopting a 4-day week, and also associated with workers working at home? So are these considerations taken into account in his guidelines?
I think, sir, if any applicant to the scheme can demonstrate how they plan to improve their productivity, then all of that will be taken into consideration. That my department certainly haven't carried out any specific work into a 4-day week, sir, but I can confirm, sir, that there will be no impediment to any businesses wishing to include that as part of their scheme. After all, improved productivity is about working smarter, not harder, sir, and producing more economic output with less resource.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Minister.
supplementary.
No, sir, it's fine.
Thank you, Senator Ferguson. I then have Senator Ferguson, Deputy Senator, and then final supplementary. Senator Ferguson.
How does the minister describe an increase in productivity? What is his understanding of the term, which is bandied around so much?
Well, sir, it's not so much my term, but the economic term we use, sir, to monitor our productivity. It is the value, sir, of business profits added to the compensation of employees, or the payroll of businesses. If you add those two figures together, that gives us our gross value added for the island, and you simply divide that figure by the number of full-time equivalent employees, and that scheme, that formula, sir, will be applied to the businesses applying to the scheme, so their productivity can be monitored in the same way, sir.
Supplementary, Senator Ferguson.
No, sir.
Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. Will such schemes involving increasing productivity through moves toward the living wage, will he be encouraging companies engaging in this route to seek accreditation from Caritas?
I haven't actually given consideration to accreditation from Caritas, but I would encourage all businesses to embrace improved productivity, and I would support the appropriate accreditation with whoever it may be.
Supplemental, Deputy Sutton.
I can't see where there's an answer I can ask on that.
Very well.
I think so. I was trying to say that, you know, I would support companies seeking accreditation.
Final supplementary, Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Would the minister accept that if measures to improve productivity for Jersey businesses are successful, then in the future there will be fewer excuses for not accepting proposals to raise the minimum wage to living wage?
So I think I and certainly the majority of, if not all of the Assembly, support the move to living wage and promoting productivity through productivity support scheme. And this is a pilot scheme, which is successful, I hope can be rolled out on a much larger scale, sir, is done for the sole objective of improving productivity. And that means, sir, improving wages. I do support that wholeheartedly, sir, and very much hope that these schemes will facilitate a much faster move to improve wages right across the workforce. Thank you
very much. Is the adjournment proposed?
Yes, sir.
Adjournment is proposed. The Assembly stands adjourned until 2:15.